The history of Air America lives here. This is WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. As President Biden celebrates his first year in office, his approval rating has hit a new low. The AP's Jackie Quinn with what Americans are telling us.
56% of respondents in a new Associated Press NORC poll say they disapprove of how President Biden is handling his job. Just 43% approve of Biden's performance. In July, Biden enjoyed a 59% job approval rating. But then the bloody U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan and the president's handling of the pandemic and the economy have toppled his approval ratings. I'm Jackie Quinn.
So did the president renege on his promise to make things better?
I didn't overpromise, but I have probably outperformed what anybody thought would happen. The fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where we have made enormous progress.
President Biden at his news conference yesterday, but hours later, the president suffered a defeat when voting rights legislation collapsed in the Senate. Two senators refused to join their own party in changing Senate rules to overcome a Republican filibuster. President Biden also said last night he thinks Russia will invade Ukraine, and he's warning it will pay a price if it does. This morning, Russia is accusing the West of provoking trouble. The FAA gave approval late last night for more types of airplanes to land in low visibility near 5G signals, including the Boeing 777. There have been concerns new 5G services in the U.S. could interfere with an airplane's instruments. At least one airline that had canceled Boeing flights to the U.S., Emirates, now says it will resume its Boeing flights. Police in Britain have arrested two people in connection with that hostage taking at a synagogue in Texas. This is AP News. The AP's Charles de Ledesma with more on those arrests in Britain.
British police say they've arrested two people in...
Okay, Pastor Brooks is ready. Would you like me to put him through?
Yes. Counter-terrorism police say one man was arrested in Birmingham, central England, and another in Manchester. They're being held for questioning and have not yet been charged. British...
Good morning.
Hey, hon, how are you?
Took 4 people hostage.
Wonderful. Sweetie, I need you to lead with how people can reach you and the fact that you're feeding people.
About 2 weeks
because I need you to be, I'm working on getting you out by 6:15. I'm trying to get in. I have a lot of stuff I've got to do.
Release without charge.
I'm trying to do,
Two Supreme Court
I've been asked to do a
justices
lot of
say
other
it's
little
not
stuff,
true that
but
they were at odds over wearing masks in court.
what I need
Justices
is,
Sonia
I need
Sotomayor
you,
and
but I
Neil
need,
Gorsuch.
people need
The
to know
court
where
issued a
to come
statement
and
saying simply,
see
"It is
your,
false."
come to
I'm
your
Rita
service if
Foley,
you're still
AP
having in-person
News.
services. If not, then you need to also let them know
WCPT Willow Springs.
how they can
And
see you
streaming
online,
worldwide,
and if you're giving away food, do all that at the
We
top,
are Chicago's
okay?
progressive talk, where facts matter.
Okay, and let's just keep it in 5 minutes.
And now your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Have those winter birthday kits prepared.
Thank you, sweetie. How's your family?
The wind chills off below zero this morning. You have a couple of crashes to report.
Okay.
80 west.
Matt, I need you to bring that down just a bit.
Also one near U.S.
Okay. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, good. Oh, now I can really hear you. Okay, how you doing?
Awesome.
Wonderful.
My younger brother passed. My younger brother passed.
Wow, Darius?
Yeah, today is, he passed
1 minute.
Sunday.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, they're all is well.
Well, no, you know what? That's a sermon in and of itself.
Yes. I'm telling people, the Santita people don't know God's word. They say, I'm sorry for your loss. And I say, what loss? What are you talking about? I'll tell you about it.
But that's its own sermon. And that's what
Absolutely.
you need to, got to share that with people.
30 seconds.
Because if anybody asks me where I'm going soon, I'm getting out of here. Okay? I hope. I'm like, what?
Soon, but yeah, we're going to get there.
I'm trying to get out of here. Not right now, but,
Right.
I'm going.
We got a couple more things to do. Yeah, we got a couple more places to visit.
So.
Yeah, a couple more fives to get out there.
Can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world. This is the Santita Jackson Show. War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Thursday, January 20th, 2022. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. 773-763-9278 is my number. 773-763-9278 is my number. I want to hear from you today. Call me. Let's talk about voting rights. Let's talk about the president's speech yesterday. It was quite a marathon. More than an hour he stood there and got questions and answered them. So what do you think about yesterday? What do you think about how his review of his first year? What do you think about voting rights and how that went down? What do you think about the fact that Mitt Romney says no one from the White House reached out to me? Now, the White House is contradicting that, but he said no one reached out to me. Wow. Let's talk about this, everybody. Remember, your voting rights are the rights that guarantee every other right that you have. Think about that. So I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Because he was asked pointedly about the Black community. Someone had gone to South Carolina and they reported that the Black community is very disappointed in him. And he said, I want to get out. I need to see people. Will that be enough? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT Jean out there in Portland, and Angela and Joyce and Barbara Bacon and John Cunningham, and sending everybody so much love. Francis and Andre and Linda and A. King down there in Memphis, and Daryl out there in Columbus, Ohio. Everybody like and share. Now like and subscribe. Go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and meet me on Facebook. I'm streaming live there too on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. If you want to be my friend on Facebook, I need you to go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I can't accept any friends on the Santita Jackson page. It's just a landing page. But let's talk about voting rights today, everybody. There's a lot to talk about. And what about the homeless and their votes? Have we thought about that? That's a real issue, too. We're going to be talking about that as well. So we've got a tremendous panel and can't wait to hear from you. Get your political assessments about where we are. So let's get right to it, everybody. In Chicago, we're going to have a high. It's going to be cold here today, 18 degrees, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 2 degrees above zero. Ooh, sunny and bright. The Dow closed down 339 points. The NASDAQ closed down 166 points. The S&P 500 closed down 44 points yesterday. They're calling it a course correction. In the NBA, the Timberwolves fell to the Hawks. The Hawks 134, the Timberwolves 122. And the Bulls, well, they were triumphant over the Cavaliers. The Bulls 117. The Cavaliers 104. Everybody, what about President Biden? He held a news conference yesterday marking his first year in office. In his address, he touted major strides in COVID-19 vaccination efforts, but also the challenges that lie ahead as many priorities in his agenda remain stalled in Congress. Senate Democrats suffered a major defeat. We're going to be talking about that today in their efforts to pass voting rights legislation, a key issue for the party, which is under pressure to take action on this ahead of the midterm elections. What do you think about that, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. The Supreme Court cleared the way yesterday for the release of presidential records From President Trump's White House to a congressional committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol, the High Court's order means that more than 700 documents will be transferred to Congress that could shed light on the events leading up to the insurrection. Some good news from Pastor Darius Brooks, but we are sending him much love today. This is, wow, what a godly man. You just lost your brother, and no one, where they say what earth's loss is heaven's gain, but even then you're so bright and sunny about it. Not that you don't miss your brother, but you've been saying, wait a minute, no, I guess you are really obedient. The Bible tells you to cry at birth and rejoice at death. But I still want you to know we're still praying for you, Darius.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And the message today is going to be helpful to all of us. First, Santita, I'm so excited about Grace Central Church. And every Tuesday from 5 till 7, we feed between 300 and 600 families. Santita, I said every Tuesday. I was looking at during the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and the whole place was filled with people giving. And it's so beautiful. Wonderfully, we don't do it just for the holidays. We started January before the pandemic. We were serving through the pandemic every Tuesday from 5 to 7, 300 to 600 families, and we have not stopped. We've been consistent all the way, and I'm sharing that with you all today. Whoever needs food, we are stopping every week, every Tuesday from 5 to 7, and we had to add another day, which is Wednesday from 12 to noon for the seniors, because we didn't want them out in the evening at night. So Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchen Street, Westchester, Illinois, every week, come hell or high water. Last week, when it was cold below zero, we was out from 5 to 7 on Tuesdays, and on Wednesdays from noon till 2, Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchen Street, Westchester, Illinois. And Santita, when I say food, I'm talking about $180, $200 worth of food, milk, cheese, bread, flour. I mean, the whole nine. Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchen Street. And we're excited. As a matter of fact, we're running out of room. We have to expand. We have to get a commercial freezer and a commercial refrigerator. But we're excited. And the volunteers blow me away. People of God, do not give up on God. I know it seems crazy out there, but lay everything you got at Jesus' feet. I promise you, he's the only one in the universe, and we're going to talk about that will not ever let you down. He will orchestrate events to move you in his will. The enemy cannot stop God's power. He's going to get things done here in the world, just like the Santita Jackson Morning Show, giving information so people can utilize it for their everyday life. I don't know who I'm talking to today, but don't you ever throw in the towel. Give up on your mama, your daddy, your boyfriend, your doctor, your lawyer, your preacher, your teacher, but don't you ever give up on God, Santita. Isaiah 45:23 says, I have sworn by my name, I have spoken truth, my mouth in righteousness. I shall not return it unto me. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall promise. Santita, I need to share this with you again. When we make a commitment to God, he says, I have sworn by my name, not Jesus' name. He's talking about you and me or whoever is a believer. I've sworn by my name. I've spoken truth in my mouth, which means God's word is going to stand. And righteousness means in my mature place, I'm not ever changing this. Santita, I don't have a relationship with God. I have a covenant with God, because in relationships, sometimes you feel like enough and sometimes you don't. But when you make a covenant with God, you take it through his word, whether you like it or not. And he says, and it shall not return unto me. In other words, my words ain't going to return unto me, because I'm trusting God in everything I do. And here's what I love about it. He says, every knee, that means when I do it and you do it, or whoever trusts his word, and he says, every knee shall bow or humble itself before the feet of Jesus. And this is what I like right here. And every tongue shall swear. S-W-E-A-R. Now, people think it means swear and cuss. Now, this word in Hebrew means promise that you're going to trust me in everything that you do. And Santita, if I had to use for a thought, it's always at his feet, always at his feet. Often we seek for answers, but God asks us to take steps, because he knows all that we need are in the steps. My God, Santita, what is your covenant with Jesus today? What is your place with him that you could say, I'm taking everything through him? Can you honestly describe and consider how it is connected to thinking, how your thinking is connected to how you're directing your life with your covenant with Christ? Your name, you're connected to your name and how you use his word. Can you honestly consider and pay attention to how it's connected to your thinking and how it directs your life? Like Moses, we often feel frustrated and angry. Watch this. There comes when we cannot decide on a path to follow. We can't fit into the life lived before. Santita, you and I can go back into yesteryears. We can't do that. Yet the path before us is dark and uncertain. No wonder we feel like two different people. What the world needs now, having God's path, but deciding to use another one. Sometimes we lash out in anger and we get upset and we pay ourselves rashness. But Santita, always at his feet. God's word brings out our hidden ability to make us stand up for ourselves. He assists us not to be angry and focus us on the things we're able to do. The word of God covers all aspects of our busy lives. This unique book sheds light on these timeless issues covering such topics. Girl, I got to get out of here. We got to get out. Sexuality, people scared of sex. While the Bible does warn against promiscuity, Jesus was quick to forgive sexual mistakes and soothe the suffering that such mistakes cause. How to stop trying to control others. Pharaoh asked the Lord, he says, what should I do? How can I heed your voice and let Israel go? Real human strength is the acknowledgement that our own happiness depends on giving freedom to others. That's why Grace Central do what we do. Coping with fear. The greatest fear is the unknown. Santita, we're scared of the stuff we don't know. We're scared of the stuff we don't know. Jesus counseled that. Nothing is covered that will not be revealed. I got to go, Santita. No matter what.
Pastor Darius Brooks.
Low or high.
Pastor Darius Brooks, what is your website?
Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. Grace Central. Yes, GraceCentral.net. I think that's, GraceCentral.net.
I just want to make a quick appeal to everyone. Please, given the godly work that they are doing, please go to GraceCentral.net and make a contribution if you can. This is the kind of work that the churches that I grew up in, that this is what they do. They serve people. They serve people. And I just thank God for you today. And First Lady Deb. And First Little Baby Dasha, who's in college now. I can't believe it. Love Darius Brooks. Everybody, GraceCentral.net. Oh, and my prayers, all of our prayers are with you and your family. May God bless you. Love you so much. Love you, love you, love you. This is my brother and friend, everybody. We've got Dr. Deborah Furholden, epidemiologist, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University at the School of Medicine at Michigan State University, and coming out of Johns Hopkins. You know we love Dr. Deb and all that she guides us through, because boy, every day there's a new headline, Darius. And of course, Dr. Shanita Knight, an infection preventionist, registered nurse. And helping to guide us through this. I mean, we're seeing that that there are some real burdens on people who are using these PPEs, these masks, for a prolonged period of time. But before I get to that, Dr. Knighton, I just had a question for Dr. Deborah Furholden. I mean, because you are like the real policy wonk, and we're seeing. We see so many studies. I'm going to send them to you. mRNA boosters don't block Omicron, according to a South African study, and showing the heightened resistance to COVID that people who've been previously infected. I read that in Bloomberg a little earlier today. But I have a question for you. I heard something that was really astonishing to me. President Biden has given at least 61 speeches on COVID, but one on voting rights. What do you think about that? I mean, because when we're voting, our priorities, it's our votes that determine our priorities. Our votes elect people who create the budgets and all of that. What do you make of that? Because when I shared that with you, you just said, wow.
Right? Yeah. I mean, but if you think about it, and I've been telling people this, I'm like, we have this focus on COVID, and everything is about COVID. COVID has dominated everybody's lives, and I do believe most of us are over COVID officially.
Yeah.
But like these other fundamental things, I've been trying to focus on them from a health perspective, reminding people, hey, just because we're in COVID doesn't mean that people are getting diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, cancers, all of these other things, right? I've broken record. I've been encouraging people, see your primary health care provider. If you don't have one, get one. Stay up on all your primary health care screenings. You know how many people run out of medication during COVID?
Oh, yeah.
Like people they have taken their eye off of the game. Watching the ball of COVID, they've taken their eye off of the game. And so I do, when you sent me that, I said it was sad, but it wasn't like a complete surprise, because I'm like, oh, this is how you can get people. You keep talking about the thing that's right in front of them, that sort of big albatross around all of our necks right now. And you can keep people sort of, well, what's he going to do next? What's he going to do next? This speech and all this, what we are going to do, what we're not going to do. I thought, man, this is just crazy. But that fundamental thing that we all need, the reason we, I think, have so much bad leadership is because of all the bad stuff that's happened with voting rights. You've got places where they, jerry-rigged the line so bad, like there's just, it's almost predetermined who's going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, that's what we need to be focusing on. I was on a really interesting panel yesterday with a group of people from New York. And what they're dealing with in New York, I think could be a good, and it was specifically around school reopening, I think could be a great tell for what many of us are going to be dealing with. And as I watched President Biden say, and we're not going back into shutdown. We're not going to close schools. 95% of schools are open. I'm like, who gave him that number? Like, where did he get that from? So it's just this whole, kind of ruse and not having people focus on the thing that really matters. And what I told people on the panel yesterday is, you do have a say. You have your voice and you have your vote. I don't understand how anybody in Florida can reelect a governor that let tens of thousands of people unnecessarily die on his watch playing political games. I mean, that's just my opinion. So this issue around your vote and how important voting is and voting rights are, and it is inextricably now linked to health. If people did not realize, politics will clobber public health any day of the week.
Absolutely.
We are not even close to evenly matched. Not even close. So this is pretty significant. And you know what? I really do, right? I'm wondering, and I'm sort of looking, because they're saying this Omicron is not going to be the predictably the last kind of wonky variant we have to deal with. It won't, reflect the end. People are like, where are we? Are we at the beginning, the middle, of the end? We just still in it. That's all I know. We're still in it. He's going to have to deal with some of these other real issues, I think, or he's truly going to have a very, very one-time, one-term, and done, and it will have been these last two presidents who will have really set our country on a very, very different course. But what I hope is that people hit the reset button in their minds and in their hearts and actually stand up and vote in a way that reflects this. When you vote for things that you think represent your self-interest, this is what you get.
Well, and you will have learned nothing.
Really true up and truly, nothing.
It's like we've not learned anything. We've not learned anything. And that is what is like unsettling to me, that we've not learned anything. Look, in this pandemic, you ought to know that it is important to have Medicare for all. Everybody ought to be covered. Everybody. You've got to vote about that. Well, you think that they're doing a mask giveaway and a medicine giveaway. No. Big Pharma and these corporations know that they have to get inside of government. They have to wrap their hands around government to make government work for them. Not for you, for them.
Yep.
So that's why you have to vote. They're doing insider trading in Congress right now. If that is something that is offensive to you, you need to vote about it. You have the power. Dr. Deb, we have got Because as you are talking to people all over the country about how we conduct ourselves during this pandemic, more people vaccinated than ever before. We got more people infected than ever before. Come on, you guys. I got something from Dr. Knighton from the CDC, Dr. Deb, about the physiological burden of prolonged PPE use, wearing the mask too long, on workers during long shifts. And I think about children in school. I think about the teachers. I think about the workers. I think about everybody who's going back to work now, Dr. Knighton. Dr.
Yes,
Knighton?
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, and I think I want to be very specific in that, I'm not mentioning this about every single mask, but when I send a message of not one mask fits all, well, for one, N95 masks are not recommended for children. They're not recommended for anyone that doesn't have the capacity to be able to speak up for themselves or make cognitive decisions, okay? And it's for multiple reasons. For one, they were never tested to fit children or tested for the long-term effects amongst children. Also, to considering children can have these issues of these physiological effects and may not know how to communicate them to adults. And so we know that their symptoms and things that may happen amongst them is going to look a lot different than what it would for us as adults. So that's one. The other piece of it is as things are being rolled out, of course, naturally I have questions. So questions being, if we know that after an hour of wear of an N95 mask, that it can cause some of these issues such as headache and dizziness, nausea at times, we ask ourselves, who's going to monitor that? And for someone that is working 8-hour shift or a 10-hour shift, who's going to make sure that someone can get a break from that mask, right? Meaning that they're going to be allowed some space or some entity of where they're going to have clean air. So that's an issue. And then when we look up at the fact that I believe they were saying 400 million, if they were going to send out 400 million N95. Mm-hmm. So let's just assume that out of that population, that's about maybe 2 masks per individual. When it comes down to moisture, those masks are not good for moisture. There's also issues where those masks should not be exposed to temperature unless they're being cleaned, and that's a whole different procedure. And they should not be exposed to sunlight. And so when I'm thinking about the lack of effort that we've placed on education around masks, right? Who's going to educate people about their health when it comes to these masks, things that they should look out for, and seeking out a primary care provider or a community hub to make sure that they're assessed, because you already know a lot of people have breathing issues and be like, oh, I just get shortness of breath going up 2 steps. Or, oh, it's not, it's not really nothing. Like, my heart just hurt a little bit sometimes, when I do this. And they don't go get it checked out. I don't want people falling asleep in these masks, right? Because that brings upon a whole nother issue. So there's just so many things that we're not thinking about when it comes to educating the public, and our patterns of what has been done with the lack of hand hygiene education, with the lack of education around general mask use, around the lack of education regarding environmental cleaning, around the lack of education regarding vaccines, around the lack of education of even the time frames between, let's say, having COVID and getting a booster, or having COVID and getting vaccinated, and, the importance of the 2 doses versus 1, depending on the vaccine that you got. This has been a public health failure.
Hold on. I have a few more minutes for you on the other side of the break as we talk about voting. Voting rights, which fell down in flames last night. What did you think about the president's press conference? Because he was pointedly asked about his relationship with the Black community, who have been the backbone of the Democratic Party. The fact is, now all of the data is showing that the Hispanic community is now more or less evenly divided between the Republicans and the Democrats. Black people are the Democrats. What are they going to do? How are they going to deliver for the least of these? Who are most of them? They might have the money, but we got the votes. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. Back in a minute. Thank you so much. You know what? Because I want you to go into that in greater detail. I've just got to make a hard turn into what happened with President Biden yesterday. But you feel free to make a comment. I'm going to have to let you all go, though, because I'm going to need some. Hold on a minute. Some lines. I wish no, stay right there because I need you to finish your thought, and then I need Dr. Deb to wrap things up. Stay there for a minute. Dr. Deb, were you there when Shanina jumped in yesterday? The girl didn't even know she was still on the phone, and she said, wait a minute. I'm just a caller now. Oh, girl, it was so rich. I loved it. I mean, she was on point. It was just, I was like, the Deus ex machina, the voice of the machine that just comes out of the God, just coming out. I was like, oh, but it was great, because
I couldn't help it.
No, girl, please. I didn't want you to. Please, go on. I'm teasing you about it because I thought it was great. Jean and Francis and Samantha and Barbara Bacon. I said hello, Stanley Davis and Keith Fluid and Carmelita, another Ita. That's right, my girl. Ashley from Rainbow Push in Tennessee and Memphis, sending you much love. And all right, from South Carolina, Hannah. That's right, the Palmetto State. My dad, my brother Jesse, and my father, of course. My brother was born in South Carolina, but my father's from South Carolina. There is a difference. And Lynn and Andre, sending all of you my love today. You all want to keep on talking. People really love to hear you all talk during the breaks. They said it's so much candor. John, how you doing? And D. Ray, good morning, girlie. Samantha, Carol out there in Beverly Hills. All right, Michael Ann, my sweetie, how you doing? Linear Bob in Silicon Valley. Laura Bell. All right, sending all of you so much love today. And Mehdi and Paul and Robert. So I'm going to bring you all up. But there's just so much going on. I don't even know what to tell you. So, okay, what's this? Oh, Chaparral puts on events too. You know what? I'm going to send you all these pictures. You'd be shocked that she is so gifted. I'm going to send them to you.
I've seen some of her stuff on Facebook.
Isn't it fabulous?
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going to be going on during prom season, and a lot of people, had these balloon setups in their front yards if they could, so people could do drive-bys with their kids. But, oh, wow. I mean, she just does great work. I'm going to send you all, this is going to be a group text. But,
Okay, 1 minute.
Okay. Okay, do we, yes?
All our guests are ready.
Okay, great. Let me say hello to them very quickly. Attorney Hoffler. CK?
Thanks, Santita. Good morning.
Okay, hey, babe, just trying to make sure I hear you. Attorney Lamar?
I'm here.
Attorney Griggs?
Good morning.
How you doing?
30
I'm
seconds.
doing pretty good. Just sitting here watching Good Morning America.
Well, you're an hour ahead, so you can do that. Okay. So, in fact, I just sent it to you, Shanina, but of course you can see that right after we do this. Okay. Oh, you know what? Let me go to a caller very quickly, okay? Is Laura still there, Matt?
Yep, she's still on the line.
Okay. I'm going to go to Laura very quickly so that you can answer her question about masks. Dr. Knighton.
world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world. This is the Santita Jackson Show. War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. I am Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio. Boy, we've been hearing from Dr. Deborah Verholden, epidemiologist, associate dean of public health at Michigan State University School of Medicine, about the connection between your health, your health care, and your vote. That is uppermost in our minds today. But now we're getting a lot of regulations let me back up. We're getting masks, but we don't know how to regulate them. We don't know how to use them. We don't. And the CDC, most of us don't read the CDC reports. They said, there are some physiological burdens upon people who have to wear these masks for a long period of time. Now, we just hear from you that children shouldn't wear the N95 masks because we've not tested them. Oh my gosh, there's so much going on. But now we're about to have 400 million of them. We're about to have access to them. And all this time, I thought they were the gold standard in masks. Let me go to Laura. Laura, what's on your mind?
Hey, Santita.
Hey, sweetie, what's on your mind? I know you have a question about these masks. Me too. I'm going to just shut up and listen.
Yes, ma'am. I have a big question about them.
What's on your mind?
Can you hear me pretty well?
Well, it's okay, but just speak up a little bit louder, okay?
No problem.
Okay, great.
I was asking about the masks that both the doctors had said that we needed to, start using. And I noticed that they said something that we have to go online to get these kind of masks. There are those of us who don't have access to internet or computer to go online, go to Amazon or whatever these places are that we can get these masks. If they want us to use these kind of masks and stuff like that, why don't they make it available for us?
Like just send them to us?
Easily. Yes.
Dr. Knighton, and then you, Dr. Holden.
Okay, so good morning. The one mask that I was speaking of, so when I'm talking about a 3-layer mask covered by a medical mask or a cloth mask that's covered by a medical mask, that provides between 85% and 91% protection. And so if you've already been utilizing a cloth mask, that's getting one of those disposable masks and placing those masks beneath and making sure that it has a snug fit and is adjustable by the ears. So that is something that you shouldn't just find online. You can actually find that in local stores. What you're speaking about is the medical mask brace. So I am not sure of any, I would say, vendors or sellers of the medical mask brace outside of knowing of ones that are online. And it may just be because of how I access it on my phone or how I shop. But the medical mask brace, when it covers a medical mask, can provide up to 99% protection against aerosols. So you do have an alternative outside of the medical mask brace, and that would be the double layering, which is the cloth mask covering a surgical mask.
Dr. Verholden, she brings up a point. So many of us, a lot of people are still not online. I mean, we have a great digital divide in poor communities of every color. And we absolutely we saw this during, when everything shut down. Kids couldn't get online to go to school. What about just sending these supplies out to people? If they have a warrant for your arrest, they sure can find you. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but here's what I can say, and I'm not. I don't like how much of this has been handled. For the free mask that the government is saying everybody is eligible for, the site opened up a day early, and so for the people who could, they went online and ordered their mask. There is a hotline that's coming. I literally was on the site last night trying to figure it out, dealing with some of the same issue that we have with folks in this digital divide. So there will be a number that people can call to be able to order them by phone. And I'm going to just say this, and this is my opinion. For people who don't have internet access, don't have Wi-Fi or some of those things, I really do feel like that's going to put people at a disadvantage. So if you know somebody, literally, I was texting a bunch of people. I called my Aunt Betty. I said, Aunt Betty, this has opened up. Why? Aunt Betty has a smartphone, but I don't think she would be well at navigating that on her smartphone. Mm-hmm. And I ordered it for her. So this is also the time to be, networking and fellowshipping with the people in your life. And the other thing I want to say is most public libraries will offer free Wi-Fi service and free computer use to people in communities. So if you have access to a public library, I just want people to have, as much access as they can. But
and know that
a number that people can call will be coming.
And as soon as of course, you will provide that. You will share that with us once that is provided, because we do need to know. But you need to also know there's some resources that we have out here. There's some things many of us do not know that you can go get warmed up in a library if you get cold. You can go to not just a shelter. You can go to a police station. You can go to the fire station. I mean, you need to know that. You need to know that you have a computer that you don't have to pay for at your local library, which is why we need to keep them fortified. But again, you have to vote about that, everybody, because that has to be important to you. That has to be important to you. Stay right there because we have a lot. Of course, we got a full house this morning. I'm going to have to let some of you go. But, I know Dr. Knighton and Dr. Verholden, who are public intellectuals, really in the tradition of Dr. Cornel West. I was thinking about you yesterday, Dr. Deb, and I said, you need to know that you function as Dr. Cornel West does. You function as Dr. Alvin Toussaint, the preeminent black psychiatrist from Harvard University, who used to get in trouble with his university all the time. I say that because he's like my Uncle Alvin. I've known him all my life. He used to stay in our house because he was so politically assertive. And more than that, he was politically assertive on behalf of black people and the least of these. And so you are in that tradition, and we thank God for you. And just know that when you take that road, you take hits. But you have everlasting life with people. People are grateful to you forever. So I just wanted you to know that. If you just look at the landscape, the Skip Gates, the people who we remember and who are beloved by us, they stand for us, and we thank you for that. We thank you both for that. As you stand in the halls of academia, I know it's not easy. We're joined by, of course, I know you're riding with Robert today, Dr. Deborah Verholden. Dr. Robert Patillo is with us. I cannot wait to
hear what he has to say. I can't wait to hear his thoughts on last night.
Oh my gosh! But I've got a. Please, we're rocking and rolling today. Of course, leading the panel is Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Chair of Rainbow Push, and the immediate past president of the National Bar Association. And we have got we were calling name yesterday, Gerald Griggs, Attorney Gerald Griggs. We're glad you're with us this morning. We've forgotten that we had scheduled you for today. Attorney Keith Lamar. All these wonderful prosecutors who've taken that information to really help make the justice system just. Well, let's start with you, Attorney Robert Patillo. We don't know what you're going to say about the press conference, but we sure do want to hear it. Of course, you're on WAOK. You and CK have shows on WAOK. CK show is on WAOK in Atlanta every Tuesday from 11 to 12 Eastern Standard Time. You are on from 1 to 4 every Sunday. Talk to us. What did you make of the press conference? What did you make of President Biden's assertion that he needs to get back out with the people, particularly black people? Someone said, hey, we went to South Carolina and black people were very disappointed in you there. And then we saw voting rights go down in flames. But then we also heard Mitt Romney say, no one called me from the White House. Robert Patillo, what do you make of all of this?
Well, I don't think the press conference went a long way of reestablishing the American people's confidence in who's at the wheel right now. One, just from a logistical standpoint, you have a president who's 80 years old. Why exactly did his staff leave him up there for 2 hours answering questions? And if you watch the entirety of the press conference as I did, towards the end, he started getting a little bit terse, a little bit of scorbic, answering reporters. He's leaning over the lectern. He's checking his watch. It just wasn't the best look when it comes to the optics of how you want to present the president. That should have been a tight 45 minutes for questions, and then out the door. So just from a logistical standpoint, I think that wasn't the best light to put him in. Secondarily, I heard the word hope entirely too much. And by what I mean by that is hope is not a plan. So when you say, well, I hope to get big chunks of Build Back Better passed, that's not a plan. That is, you're hoping that it happens. I hope for the lottery. I hope that I grow 3 inches taller tomorrow. I hope for a lot of things. So there was no real plan laid out on exactly the path forward on any of the big parts of the legislative agenda. Clearly, they don't have the votes to break the filibuster, as they demonstrated yesterday. But the other issue is that even they did have the votes to break the filibuster or to change the rules so you can pass most of the legislation by a majority vote. He hasn't articulated what exactly he's going to do to even get his entire caucus to get all 50 Democratic senators on board. So it was good that they decided to have a press conference where they spoke to the American people. But I think they could have presented it better just from an optics and logistics standpoint. I think that most people need to hear more than, well, hopefully things will get better this year, because there's no plan laid out as to exactly what's going to be done to put some of these things across the finish line and to get points on the board for Democrats going into the midterm elections.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, your thoughts about so much happened yesterday. We went from the press conference to trying to figure out what was going to happen with the vote, and if I can give you some sound effects.
I know. Yesterday was just a sad day all around, to be very frank. And when I say a sad day, I tend to agree with Robert. The press conference went too long, but I do understand and appreciate that the president wanted to take full accountability. This is what I'm thinking had to be the justification for it, for going so long. He answered all the questions. Yeah, he was getting a little bit annoyed and getting the way that as we progress in stages of our lives, we're just annoyed, looking at your watch and all that. But I will say that I think it was generally okay, the way he answered some of the questions. I mean, he was on the hot seat. People were like, what in the world are you doing? What's your plan? And there was not a plan articulated going forward. But yesterday was a sad day because the Democrats just lost on every front. Every front. They lost on voting rights. To me, they lost on voting rights, civil rights, human rights. Every right. It wasn't just the voting rights. It represents a complete across-the-board loss of states, I believe. We knew that the Republicans were going to do what they did, but we needed to have a record of it so that now there can be an action plan put in place. It would have been great for the president to have announced an action plan, because I think at this moment, people do realize that it's not just his fault. People understand that. They understand the politics. So now hold those people who have voted no for voting rights, hold their feet to the fire, go back to their districts, do all of the things that have to be done. And then, the fact that no modification of the filibuster, all of that, that was just another, crushing defeat. So yesterday, while I expected some level of defeat, I felt that it was crushing. And it was also not made better before, during, or after the press conference, although I think the press conference was generally good. Insofar as the president took responsibility, he didn't duck and dodge, and he stayed there for way too long. I agree with Robert on that, but at least he stayed there and answered questions for the American people. So yesterday was a bad day. Today has got to be about, what are we going to do? Not just what are we going to do, not just what are we going to do in terms of pushing the hand of the president and the agenda of the president, because I think he is now there. But what are we going to do to take matters in our own hands? Well, we know that because there's no federal legislation, you've got to go back to the states. And sitting in a state like Georgia and all those other states that have these voter suppressive laws, that is really an uncomfortable place to be in, especially when we've got Raphael Warnock, who's coming up for re-election. The blessing to that is Herschel Walker, because I do not think on any given day, even though I take nothing for granted, nothing.
Please don't, because let me tell you something about that. We had Alan Keyes running against Senator Obama and Alan Keyes, he was real good about 85% of the way in. Now, Herschel Walker's got some other problems because he has mental challenges. God bless him. But
a whole bunch of issues. But I take nothing for granted because there's a wave of people who just prefer to support people with mental issues over a very, very strong Democratic senator.
Of course.
We have to remember that 70 million people who voted for former President Trump, they're still out there, and they may have gained some traction. Now there might be 75 million.
Well, I think that's what it was.
Many of them are in the South.
Yeah.
Right, and many of them in the South. So even it has nothing to do with reason, right? You can't. It's not a question of reason. It's politics. So we don't take anything for granted. But I think Herschel Walker is about the best candidate out there right now that Senator Warnock would have a chance of defeating because of the climate. Because of the climate right now, where the president is not looking strong. And so the president's not looking strong. We're going into the midterm elections. That's going to negatively impact, unless there's something that turns around, impact all of the candidates that are up for re-election or those that are seeking to take seats. So I think yesterday was a sad day, but there's always hope. We've been here before. We can't. I felt really bad yesterday, but when I woke up this morning, I said, just think of how, your dad has felt, how Reverend Jackson has felt over the years, over decades when we had setbacks. A setback is nothing more than preparation for a great comeback. And we have to put that great comeback into action.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's going to take.
And absolutely. And, we got to remember, Harold Washington almost lost to Bernard Epton, who was a Republican in Chicago, who was his opponent, who was in the mental hospital the night of the election. And when you saw him running, you knew he had issues. God bless him. But that's who almost became the mayor of Chicago in 1983. Mic drop on that. Oh, Attorney Keith Lamar. What did you make of yesterday?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I look at yesterday and I wasn't surprised by it, but I think that we have to learn that they're playing by a different set of rules, and you have to be able to, even though you want the bipartisanship, and I definitely want the bipartisanship, you're going to have to force some issue and push some things through, because if the shoe was on the other foot, they wouldn't have cared. They wouldn't have been two people from their side to say, hey, I'm going to stop this. They just went forward, pushed all the rules, just like they're doing here in Georgia. They would have pushed everything through, have people knocking on the door, trying to get them to stop pushing the bill through, and they still push it through. So, honestly, it's kind of sad, but we have to figure out a way to be more aggressive in our approach and stop trying to be kind of a word of soft, I guess you would say. We have to be very aggressive, because they're not going to be soft with us. They're not going to take into consideration our feelings. So in knowing that they're not going to take into consideration our feelings, we got to be able to go forward ourselves.
I hear you. Attorney Griggs, your thoughts?
I agree with my brother, Keith Lamar. I agree with Robert Tillo. I always agree with CK. But I also agree with history. And I want to thank your dad for what I'm about to say. Because, I watched yesterday as the voting rights bills went up in flames. And I watched the president meander around in that long press conference. And I kept thinking back to the fact that in civics class, I learned that there were 3 co-equal branches of government. And so I started doing some legal research, and I reached back to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and I read the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and then I read Shelby v. Holt. And I realized that the Constitution empowers the Congress to create the laws and the executive branch to execute the laws. And Shelby v. Holder only struck down 2 provisions of the Voting Rights Act. So there is good law. And the president needs to articulate a plan with an executive order fully empowering the Justice Department to go after the several states for these clear violations of the voting right. We got to litigate, people. We got to litigate. And so
I understand politicians play political games. I agree with Keith. We got to be more aggressive, and that aggressiveness comes in the spirit of Thurgood. It comes in the spirit of Fred Gray. It comes in the spirit of all of the lawyers of the past, the Constance Baker Motleys of the world. It's time for the Justice Department to do what the Justice Department is charged with doing. I will point out 52 USC section 10302, which gives them the power to file lawsuits to get the appointment of federal observers in Part A, in Part B, to suspend any use or test or device which is designed to deny or abridge the right to vote. I mean, that's still good law. You can still have the power to prohibit state officials from doing certain actions. All of these things can be done if the Attorney General files lawsuits and gets the court to issue these remedies. So I understand that we took a loss yesterday, but today it's time for the federal government to use its power against these several states in the same way that we were protesting and getting in the way, getting in good trouble to get the Voting Rights Act of 65 was the same thing that Tamika Mallory and LaTosha Brown did yesterday on the steps of the Capitol. So there is still hope, and there is an actual plan. My hope is that the Justice Department will be empowered by a real executive order to use the Voting Rights Act to litigate against these several states, because the win is going to come in federal court because it's still good law.
Well, you make a great point, Attorney Griggs and Attorney Lamar and Attorney Hoffler. I mean, and Robert, you're the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push. We do know that when we got the Voting Rights Act, Fair Housing Act, Civil Rights Act, et cetera, et al., we were on a legal track and we were on a street track. We were marching in the streets and we were pushing in the courts. Is it now time for us to do that again?
Well, I think we have to take all available avenues, quite frankly, that we can, that voting rights are so important that it's something we cannot simply allow to be turned around on. We cannot continue to expect every single election, not just to turn out people to vote, but to turn out enough people to vote to get over the levels of voter suppression and schemes created to disenfranchise people. We can't keep being expected to win by 110% every election cycle. So I think that we have to take all available avenues possible in order to try to find remedy, because for some reason, voting rights is always thought of as simply being a black issue. So just look at the number of women elected nationwide since the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the number of Hispanics, of Asians, of every minority group. America did not start looking like the great American melting pot when it comes to political leadership until the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So now to be ostensibly in a post-Voting Rights Act world, I don't think people fully realize and understand what that will mean for America going forward. As America gets more progressive, more liberal, wanting bigger legislation, well, if you don't do the fundamentals protecting the right to vote, then all that goes by the wayside, and we can't end up with minority rule, not minority as an African American, but the political minority of the folks who have not won a general election or who haven't won a popular vote in the last 17 years. People represent 41 million fewer people in the Senate than the Democrats. Those are the folks who get to make the decisions if we do not fight on every battlefront possible to give and protect the right to vote back to the American people.
When we get on the other side, I want to talk about why Mitt Romney was not given a call, why there was not a 100 senator strategy. And where do we go from here? I mean, there's a lot that we can do. Attorney Griggs, you are right. We need to get in the courts because we are the Republicans are rolling through the states. They're like, okay, you can. Dave Daley told us that in the book. Rat F. They said you can have the presidency. You can have that. We're going to take over the states. Sound familiar? It sounds very Civil War-ish. We're going to take over the states. We're going to be the governors. We're going to be the secretaries of state. We are going to be the legislators in both houses. and we're going to gerrymander the majority of Americans out of power. And that is what they're doing. What are you going to do about it? You have the power. It works when you work it. This is our government. You need to take it back so that we can make the government really be up for and by the people and make it work for everybody. Whatever has worked for Black people has worked for everybody. You cannot have freedom if you have slaves. If one person born on this soil is not a citizen, then nobody's truly a citizen. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments freed all Americans from slavery. It gave all Americans born on these shores, all these English colonists, it gave everybody citizenship. And lastly, the 15th Amendment, we got freedom, we got citizenship, and then we got our vote. They're all tied together, everybody. Back in just a minute. Everybody, back in just a minute. Okay, you all, Dr. Furhold and Dr. Knighton, are you all still there?
Yeah, just for a few more minutes.
You have something you want to say, Dr. Knighton or Dr.
Me too. Me too. Can I just say something? Can I just say something about Dr. Knighton yesterday? Let me just say yesterday because I didn't get a chance to say. I had to mute myself just for a second because I howled, not laugh, not hee ha ha, not even the delicate, woman laugh. Oh, stop. I howled. And there would have been no coming back for me, as a professional, if I had laughed the way, no coming back. I don't care how much you love me, Santita. You were said, something wrong with you, she got to go. Thank you for your intervention yesterday, for the timing of it, for the manner of it. It was so raw and great. I just had to say that. How? And it was just what I needed, at that point in life. It prepared me for the sadness of what happened yesterday. So thank you, Dr. Knight.
Well, I just want to say, you brought that out of me. You were just talking and sharing, and it was your knowledge that ended up informing that. And I'm like, really? So no, thank you. And trust me, it took doing a reenactment of it yesterday that had me cracking up. So I muted my phone so I didn't get kicked off.
There's a lot going on, you guys. So much. Everybody, please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and like and subscribe there. Renee, and you all call us. If the lines are busy, just keep calling us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. We want to talk with you today about what you saw yesterday and about where we're going today. That's really the key. Where are we going from here? Dr. King said, chaos or community. Where are we going to go from here? And we got someplace to go. We got something we can do. I do not feel, and the thing is, people have abused the term hope, because Reverend, quite frankly, popularized it and just made it part of the cultural canon, really. But the thing is, he started talking about keep hope alive when there was a real point in the 88 campaign where it looked like he was going to be the nominee. And when he won the Michigan primary, I think he was in a field of about 6 or 7 people, and he won by, I think, 56%. It was a shocker. Hey, we were all shocked. And so it happened on a Saturday night. He had to come to Washington to meet with the powers that be that Monday. So, but they also had to stop the presses on the publications of Newsweek and Time, because those generally go out on Saturday. At least they did at that time for the next week, because they had to change the covers because they had to put Reverend on the cover because they were like, oh my gosh. And one cover was Jesse ? And the other cover was, what does Jesse really want? That was always the question. And the thing is, he said, I want to end poverty. I want, there was just so much that he wanted that was counterculture at the time. That's still counterculture. So Then we went into Wisconsin, and it looked like we were going to win Wisconsin, but all the machines started breaking down. And the same thing happened in Colorado. So we said, okay, this is what happened to Bernie. Okay, same, but it was, they literally they tried to break the campaign, and he said no. And so you have to find a way to keep people in it, to keep them registering, to keep them voting, to say, this is not about me, which, Reverend, to his credit, he never made it about him. He said, so you got to keep hope alive. And he started giving speeches that took us back, from the slave ships, to this new ship that we were on today. And so for people to, don't discount hope. You need to keep that. And you need to keep it alive. That having been said, you need to work. Faith without works is dead. And this republic, this constitutional republic that we have, will not work if you do not work it. You must vote, and after you vote, that's the end of the beginning. You must call your representatives, whether your candidate won or not, and you got to stay on them to make them do what you need them to do. If you do not have who you want in office, you better make sure they deliver on your needs, no matter what. That's mature politics. That's why the Hispanics are going between the Democratic and the Republican Party. Some of it's cultural, some of it is just, they're like, no, we're going to have feet in both parties. Everybody does that. But if if black people are going to deal with the Democratic Party, okay, I got you. But you better make it work for you. You better make it work for you. And if you're going to be a black Republican, then you need to make it work for the rest of us and not just for you. But the higher-ups the black higher-ups in the Democratic Party need to do the same thing. A few people are benefiting while everybody else is out here struggling and starving. That's not going to work. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. Do we have Dwight McKee?
We do.
Okay. Hi, Dwight. Speak up, please.
I'm here. How you all doing today?
Okay, great. We can hear you. You got a tremendous group. Do we still have Doctors Verholden and Dr. Knighton?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'm gonna have to let my sisters go, unfortunately, because we need those two lines. But go to Facebook. Oh no, go to the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. And then
I've been put out of better places than this. I'm leaving.
Oh no, you're not.
I've been put out of better places.
Oh no, you're not, Cornella and W.B. Du Bois.
10 seconds.
But I said to you yesterday with all my heart. So.
We can change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. That is my home station, as is AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Let's talk about voting rights. Let's talk about President Biden's first year in office. Let's talk about the press conference yesterday. Let's talk. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. You can stream us on WCPT820.com, AM950radio.com. Go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and like and subscribe and meet us over there. Meet us on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. The Santita Jackson page is not going to get you anywhere. You have to come to the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and I want you to call me or text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let's talk about our rights and what happened in the press conference yesterday. What you make of the first year of President Biden's time in office. Let's get to some of these headlines so we can get to this magnificent panel. In Chicago, it is going to be freezing today. Let's be frank. 18 degrees above zero, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, it's even colder, 2 degrees above zero. Oh my gosh, and sunny. The Dow closed down 339 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 166 points. And the S&P 500 closed down 44 points. They are calling this a massive course correction on Wall Street. In the NBA, the Timberwolves, well, they fell to the Hawks. The Hawks 134, the Timberwolves of Minnesota, 122. But the Bulls were triumphant last night. The Chicago Bulls 117 and the Cavaliers 104. Everybody, what did you make of President Biden? Yesterday, he held a press conference, stood there for more than an hour, taking all of those questions, marking his first year in office. In his address, he touted major strides in COVID-19 vaccination efforts. Interestingly enough, did you know that he has given more than 60 speeches on COVID, on vaccines specifically, but only one on voting rights? Senate Democrats suffered a major defeat yesterday in their efforts to pass voting rights legislation, a key issue for the party, a key issue for the backbone of the party, African Americans, but all people who are really dealing with voting issues, which all Americans are. And they are under pressure to take action ahead of the midterm elections. What will they do? We're talking about that today with our panel. The Capitol riot, everybody. The Supreme Court cleared the way yesterday for the release of presidential records from the Trump White House to the Congressional Committee that is investigating the January 6th riots. The High Court's order means that more than 700 documents will be transferred to Congress that could shed light on the events leading up to the insurrection. So everybody, what do you make of yesterday's press conference? What do you make of voting rights, which took a real hit? What do you make of the fact that Mitt Romney, Senator Romney from Utah, he said, no one ever called me. No one ever called me and asked me for my vote. He said, I would have been open to working with you. I just feel that we needed to have some Republican input. Wow. You do know Obamacare was first Romneycare, which came from the Heritage Foundation, a position paper from 1989. So there's evidence that he could be worked with. So I want to know what your thoughts are, everybody. We've got a tremendous panel today. They have been on fire. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of Rainbow Push, and the immediate past president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest black bar association in the world, Attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, both of them brilliant civil rights lawyers, of course. He is also, they both host shows on WAOK, the iconic Atlanta talk radio station. She's on Tuesdays at 11 Eastern Standard Time. He is 1 to 4 on Sundays. And so I want you to give them your support. Attorney Keith Lamar and Attorney Gerald Griggs. Boy, they have been giving us some instructions about what it is that we need to do. You're joined by Dwight McKee. Dwight McKee, why don't you start things off for us? Set the table. What do you think about what happened yesterday?
Well, you remember, Santita, I said 2 weeks ago, and I called him by name. I didn't understand why they didn't try to peel off Mitt Romney and that liberal crowd, which makes me think again, I'm not the president. If I could think of that, then there must be a strategic reason they're not doing that. And I hold fast that it's because I'm not sure that Biden them really wants the legislation. I don't think they really want to win this. I think that they are as committed to white supremacy as Republicans are. Otherwise, it does not make sense for you not to call Mitt Romney, who is more liberal as a Republican than Manchin and that crowd are as Democrats.
That's true.
And so it seems strategic to me. Here is what I think if we're going to really be serious. The other thing I said 2 weeks ago, if you remember, Santita, is a speech ain't a strategy. Is that what we need to do is we need to go back to our ancestors, to the real fight. We fought on different fronts, as the brother just said. We fought in the streets. We fought in the courts. But we have to go back to also what Philip Randolph did. Philip Randolph threatened to boycott the military. And it seems to me that we need to go back to that strategy to say that while we talking about going to the Ukraine, you're going to send us to Ukraine to protect somebody else's right to have democracy and join NATO, and we don't have the right to vote? You're going to send us over to Europe to protect their right to vote, and we don't have the right to vote? We are back where we were in 1945, in 1941, in 1917. Is that until we begin to bring real pressure on this country to say, as your dad used to say, for real, cut us in or cut it out. We won't be co-signers to other people's peace and prosperity while we're broke and don't have the right to vote. We have to add more dimension to our struggle and our fight and take our fight as seriously, trying to fight in this system as they are fighting to lock us out.
Well, to your point about Mitt Romney, and I want everyone to respond to this, starting with you, Robert. He said, look, it's easier for minorities to vote in Georgia than it is in Biden's home state of Delaware and Schumer's home state of New York. Wow. He said in Georgia, there are more days of early voting than there, and there is no excuse absentee voting by mail. Wow. And he said, to be clear, I want an election system that allows every eligible citizen in every state to be able to exercise their right to vote in every single election. But he wanted to know why no one called him. Robert Patillo?
This is one of those places where we have to think about what Biden campaigned on. He campaigned on being competent. He campaigned on 50 years in Washington. I've been in the Senate. I know the Senate. I was vice president. I pushed through big pieces of legislation. I worked across the aisles, all that jazz. But it seemed this entire year that when the rubbers hit the road, they seem to be political neophytes when it comes to dealing with the United States Senate. Not being able to whip the votes to get to 50 to push your agenda through. Not being able to know what the Senate parliamentarian is going to do, taking out pieces of legislation. Not working across party lines and whipping the votes of moderate Republicans. Because of Mitt Romney saying nobody called him, then I'm pretty sure nobody called Susan Collins, nobody called Lisa Murkowski, nobody called any of the quote-unquote centrist Republicans. They spent so much time kissing the ring of Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema, trying to move them across the line. They never even thought of the idea of going around them and simply finding other people to push these things through. So even though for the most part negotiating Republicans have been quixotic in the last few years, you can't go out like this without pushing every single button, every single lever possible. Even a compromise bill would have been better than the no bill that they got. So I think this is another place where the administration appears to have been lacking in some ways and not living up to their most fundamental campaign promise of just being competent and getting things done.
But what do you make of Bernie Sanders saying that, he is open to supporting he said you need to primaries Manchin and Sinema. What do you think about that? Because he's been attacked by some people because he has asserted that needs to happen. Dwight?
I think that, again, they're not serious. They're serious about them maintaining their own power, but they're not serious about us being involved in this thing. And so they're always willing to sacrifice us for the sake of their agenda, but we're not willing to put on the line everything to sack theirs. That's why I said that when they were trying to vote for the budget for the country, that the Democrats should lock down on the budget and they should leverage the budget and saying you all going to suspend the filibuster for the budget. Do we vote no? Let the economy crash. If we can't be involved, let everybody go down. And then so we need to, if you're going to suspend a filibuster on the budget, then we need to suspend a filibuster on voting rights. We have to be willing to put everything on the line so that there is shared sacrifice and shared pain. We have to democratize the pain in this country for white people to understand that either we all are going to go forward or none of us are going to go forward.
Attorney Griggs, I think we need to understand when we look at the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that our freedom, our citizenship, and our votes are tied together. This is real serious stuff, Attorney Griggs.
Absolutely. And, I was listening to the debate all day long of them comparing Georgia's election laws to Delaware and New York. And we must remember that SB 202 was a compromise bill. There were worse bills that were going to ban no excuse absentee voting completely, was going to ban all drop boxes. Of course, it made line warming illegal. So SB 202 is the lesser of two evils, but it's still evil. And to hear on the Senate floor people who have not read all 98 pages of SB 202, which we were outside for 30 days to make sure that the worst provisions of the two bills that preceded it, which would have truly been worse than Jim Crow 2.0, but we still got Jim Crow 2.0. So I think that what people need to understand is fundamentally, Black people have put their bodies on the line over and over and over again. And, my issue with this administration is that we were told to wait after the CARES Act and then to wait after Build Back Better, and we'll get to voting rights. And then we forced them to come to Georgia. You have to remember, Georgia's been protesting since the very beginning. We went up to Washington 3 times. Black women put their bodies on the line, went to jail. Black women went to jail yesterday. So we have to force this conversation in the spirit of our ancestors that no longer will we sit back and just allow our rights to be eroded. This is not the last conversation on voting rights. It's a shame that we only heard one speech on this, but we will continue to push forward. There are organizations that are already suing. Parts of SB 202 have already been paused by federal courts. So what I need this administration to do is to get serious about its base. Black people delivered this administration and the Senate. So Black people's issues need to be put to the very forefront. And if they're not put to the very forefront, this administration will feel what the last administration felt. Because we were the ones pushing back. We were the backbone of the resistance. We were the backbone of Indivisible. And we will continue to organize and mobilize and push back, regardless of who's in charge.
Attorney Lamar, what are you thinking?
I think about it and I'm listening. And when it comes to Romney, I get that he's saying nobody should call or we should reach out. I understand that. But you do have a brain yourself. You do have your own mouth. You're able to have eyes and read. So why do I have to call you? If you know what to do is right, then do what's right. Don't use me as an excuse for your action. I don't really like that because we all know what the bill is about. So if you know what to do is right, do I need President Obama to call me to say, Keith, do the right thing, or can I do the right thing?
Look, I hear you.
That's how I kind of look at it. I'm like, yeah, you can blame us and what we should have did and what we shouldn't have done. But at the end of the day, only you control you. So don't blame me for your inaction. Do the right thing.
But what do you think about the White House? Well, the White House said, well, we did reach out, but they did not have a 100 senator strategy, Attorney Lamar.
No, they definitely didn't.
I mean, he kept posting Sinema and Manchin at the White House. I'm like, for what? They already said no.
I agree. And it's silly hosting a man that you know is not going to go with you. But I think that at the end of the day, they should have had one, but we have to be real with ourselves. If they did a 100-person strategy, they probably would have wasted a lot of paper.
You know what? Do you think they would have wasted more time than they wasted with Sinema and Manchin, sitting up in that White House with them?
About the same amount of time, a little bit more.
I would have been able to stomach a compromise. Don't compromise me out with the Republicans than all of this time that you gave to Sinema and Manchin, all this power that you gave to two corporatists.
Yeah, they definitely spent way too much time with him. I think they had made their representation pretty clear early in the game what they were going to do. So I do agree they did it way too much. And they should have did the olive branch. But we all must understand when the Republicans try to use that as hey, they're not trying to work with us. It's like, y'all not trying to work with us. So although, yes, we should have had more say-so with all the different Republicans and talk to more of them, I'm not going to let you off the hook just because you said we didn't talk to you. Because you still, at the end of the day, are adults, you're an elected official, and you know what's right for the overall country. So you can make the right decision. If you knew that slavery was wrong, why do we have to get so many people to tell you it's wrong? You know it was wrong from the get-go. Don't stand and be silent. You knew it was wrong.
What'd you say? Just do the right thing. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, are you back with us?
I am. I think Keith makes a great point, but this is politics. This is politics. So, of course, Mitt Romney, he should have done the right thing, but they're not going to do the right. They want to be massaged. They want to be, reached out to. This is a political engine. But I submit that at that point, even if they had reached out to him aggressively, it may not have made a difference because the die was cast. We just needed to know that the die was cast and who did the casting so that a real plan can be in place to address this. And there needs to be a real plan. We've got to go back to the states. We know that because there's not going to be a chance before the midterm elections of anything. And then President Biden needs to do some executive orders. How about that? And I'm sure he's going to, well, I'm not sure. He needs to do those because he does have the ability to do things via executive order. But there's got to be a plan. And we have to have our own plan because while we're waiting for some plan, we're wasting time. So that's Santita. That's the story Morning Glory there.
Well, I mean, it's something for us to think about. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. You can text us at that number. We want to know what your thoughts are. Call us or text us at 773-763-9278. I got about a couple of minutes, Dwight. What should be the plan going forward?
It should be 3 plans going forward. One for them and one for us, to see Keith just said. And we should be playing long ball and short ball. It's that we really need to set up a legal plan where we need to buy fiat, force them into by executive action to have to react to a lot of the president's edicts. There's some guarantees that we need to be able to put into our strategy because these are constitutional issues, and the president has the right to enforce the Constitution. I went back last week to Grant when he was president, that he, by executive order, imposed the military on the South in order to protect our constitutional rights to vote and to protect enfranchisement, to protect the 15th Amendment, because he was a general and the president, and he forced the military to protect our rights. Biden really has the option to do that. The second strategy I was thinking about should be international strategy, that we should not become the margin of victory for these Republicans and many of these Democrats to impose democracy on the world through us, while we don't have the same rights to come home and participate in democracy.
And your third?
And so we have to go back. And the third should be that we should, is what Bernie talked about, is we should target those Democrats who don't want to play with us to have to deal with primaries and have to defend themselves and have to fight for their seats. That is what effectively the president has, the Republicans have done.
Absolutely.
Is that when you go against Trump, you know that you're going to war. The reason they're so humble is because Trump tells them when they go get off of the beaten path, you know this means war.
And you know what? And we've done that before. We did that with Bernie. That's why he was stopped cold in the midst of his momentum. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. We're talking about our voting rights. We're talking about the president yesterday. And we're talking because you know what? Your vote matters. And your vote matters because you have to vote on these issues, on the bread and butter issues. The bread and butter issues. They impact, your vote impacts every aspect of your life. You know what? We're living in this pandemic, but we have been in hard times economically for a long time. And there is a study that shows that Black mortgage applicants, everybody, get this, we are denied 84% more often than white applicants. Black mortgage applicants are denied 84% more often than white applicants. If that's a problem for you, I want you to call 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com, 56david.com. If you are having trouble getting financed for your mortgage, call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. If you need to move out of Illinois, if you need to move in Illinois, if you're trying to get a home, call 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't have credit, if you have bad credit, or if you need to repair your credit. Well, they can help you. They can help you. You need to call Team Hochberg. They are your trusted local lender. Indeed, David, who's the head of Team Hochberg, would like to congratulate the state of Illinois for achieving second place in the moving report. They're up from fourth place last year. Do you need to sell or purchase your home? Well, they can help you to get your money. Do you need to stress over a new mortgage? No. Do you think that you don't have the ability to get a mortgage? That's not true. Call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit 56david.com. They have the will and they have the means to help you to get your mortgage so that you can be on the road to home ownership. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Okay, everybody, keep talking now. Ooh. I so enjoy all of you. Gee whiz. But this is a lot. This is a lot today. Okay.
It definitely is.
It is. But you know what? I think, you know what? I didn't feel sad yesterday. I said, ooh, this is an opportunity for us to really start working. Okay, I can hear someone in the background. I think you might be in a car. That's okay. It's okay. It sounds like you're swimming. But that's okay. I think that, we just have to have our own plan. We really do. I mean, Robert, Gerald, Keith, CK, Dwight, come on. But, I have a very interesting young man who's about to join us, Joe Peary. You know who we haven't talked about in terms of the vote? The homeless. So many of us are homeless. What about them? How can we guarantee their rights? And they're moving toward, the Poor People's Campaign is moving toward a big march on Washington in June. And so we want to help them to get people to Washington in June so that we can support the poor. I mean, that is so much of America. So everybody, I'm so glad that you all are with us today. But Dwight, what do you think? I mean, what do you think about all of this, Gerald? Attorney Griggs, Gerald Griggs. Do you think he should just start? Should we be pushing him on executive orders
Attorney
today?
Griggs dropped. I'm trying to get a hold of him again.
Who? Attorney Griggs?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, CK, Attorney Lomax, Attorney Lamar. I mean, executive orders, Attorney Patillo. Should that be the thing that we're doing right now?
Yes, yesterday we should have been pushing him on that.
Yesterday. Yes, and yes again.
Okay. I just want you to be honest with me, Attorney Lamar. That's,
Well, I gotta kill him with the honesty. I tell him, I say, honestly, when you look at it, it's like, look what happened to you now. You're going into a fight with a bear, and you keep going in there trying to hand the bear honey like he's not gonna slap it out your hand again. Like, yeah, you're trying to be nice to the bear, but he's still a bear. So what are you doing? We got to change up the approach, man. Don't go there and just get knocked out every time and say, dang, well, we tried. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to change it up, and we're going to be able to win.
But you know what? You're right. But what was striking to me was when I was listening to the press conference, and a reporter said, look, I was in South Carolina, and I was speaking to Black people in South Carolina, your base of support, the people who basically saved his campaign, who absolutely saved his campaign. And they are feeling let down. They are feeling that you do not have their backs.
Okay,
and
we've got just under a minute.
Do we have Mr. Peary?
I haven't been able to get a hold of him yet.
Okay.
I'm going to keep trying. I'll let you know as soon as I get him up.
Do we have Shapiro?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I just need to get out and see them, because once I see them, I was like, don't you dare come to me unless you have my voting rights in hand. I mean, bless your heart. And I do mean that in the Southern Belle way, because my grandmamas were from the South. Okay? Bless your heart. Oh, yeah.
Y'all know what bless your heart means.
Come on. They raised me. I got it. Blessed Not bless your heart. Bless it. Come on. You can't play with people. You play with puppies, they lick you in your mouth. Now, maybe if you're into that sort of thing, I get it, but I don't get it. That's crazy. This is nuts. In the meantime, these states, they're rolling back these rights.
Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. We're talking about our voting rights. But as we get to this magnificent panel, we are also talking with Chaparral. We're going to post these pictures that she has. She does event planning with Celebrations by Us, in addition to making fabulous food throughout the year. And when you see what she does with these events that she puts on, it's just stunning. Oh, come on, Chaparral. What's going on today?
Good morning, Santita, and thank you so much for letting us on again. Listen, we are gearing up for Super Bowl Sunday, and we will have your hot hors d'oeuvres, we'll have your sliders, your honey barbecue wings, your hot wings, as well as also your mac and cheese cup. Hors d'oeuvres, Swedish meatballs, barbecue meatballs, sweet and sour meatballs, whatever it is that you need for your holiday, as well as also Super Bowl Sunday. Don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-645-46. And as you stated, we do complete event planning. We do weddings, baby showers, birthday parties, as well as also we do retirement party, repasses, whatever it is that you're in need of. Don't hesitate to give us a call, 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. Thanks so much, Santita.
Hold on. I know you have something to say about what happened yesterday. Go on. I'm going to let you go. Go for it.
Yes, honey.
Because you tweeted the president. Are you in Facebook jail right now?
No, I'm not in Facebook. I might be in Twitter jail. I literally tweeted him a million times, even this morning, because when I woke up, he was like, "Oh, I'm so disappointed." I'm like, "How are you disappointed, sir? And you didn't even go after the 400 senators. How are you disappointed? I just want you to know I'm putting you on Front Street. I still want everything you promised me." I said, "We were not voting for you because of you. We were voting because we were against Trump." And the thing is that this is what we have. Biden is who he said he was and who we always know him to be. He has never been supportive of anything progressive or anything that is going to help Black people. So at this point, I tweeted Barbara Arnwine, Latasha. I tweeted AOC, Bernie Sanders. I said, now it's time to stand down. We have to hold the debt ceiling over them. The next authorization is February 18th. And we need to tell them, no, we're not going to pass the debt ceiling unless you pass voting rights. I mean, it's just that simple, Santita. We cannot continue to allow them to piss on us and tell us it's right. I'm sorry. This is so sugar, honey, iced tea. Thank you, Santita.
Thank you. Am I still on the air, Matt? I just want to know. Okay. Robert Williams said, nothing means nothing to me without tangibles. I hear you. Philip says, please find a new person and run them in the general as an independent third party and candidate for state and federal office. Look, I hear you. I mean, there is just a lot going on here, Dwight. I mean, you feel the discontent out here. People feel like, what? You know, what do we have to do? And Chaparral makes the point. We've got to look at the debt ceiling again in a few weeks. Hey.
And we got to be willing to let the economy crash. The Black Caucus can do for the debt ceiling like Manchin did for voting rights. They have to be willing to say, no, we will not vote for the debt ceiling and run the risk of letting the economy crash for these people to get it. Otherwise, they have nothing to lose. And they're not going to do the right thing. They're not. Why would they do the right thing? If doing the wrong thing keeps them in power and keeps them in control, why would they do? They are doing the right thing for themselves. They're just not going to do the right thing for us. Yesterday, Santita, one of the last Tuskegee Airmen died. He was 102. He went and helped liberate Italy. He went and helped liberate France. It is their cousins that he went, the same people that's holding us down, he went and helped liberate their cousins 70 years ago. Who would have thought that he would have died at 102 and still not have the legalized, protected right to vote after he spent his life freeing other people and fighting for other people in Europe? He died at 102. We have to be willing to put everything on the line and let the walls come tumbling down for us to be, if we're going to really take this thing seriously.
Attorney Lamar, if what is voter suppression looking like right now? I mean, what are these states doing? I mean, like, what are some of the things that they're doing?
Well, what it's basically looking at is trying to manipulate and outsmart your common citizen. They're trying to make this process so difficult or, so confusing that you can't just get out of bed and go vote. So the way they're trying to do it now is using education against us as well and try to make this system in a way where it's like, you know what? If you're going to vote, we're going to make it super difficult. You got to travel an extra 15, 20 miles. You have to go out here and stand outside. We're not going to do any kind of help. So it's a terrible way of going about it, but it's a smart way, a manipulative way of going in and saying, you know what? They think they're going to vote, but if they're going to vote, they got to jump through this hoop. They got to go through this square, even though it's a circle. They got to do this and that. And that's how they're going around doing it. And it's in your face, though, if you just take time to look at it. It's right in your face.
CK, I mean, it is right here. It's in our faces.
It is in our faces, but I got news for them. I thought I was going to take about 10 minutes to vote. I was there 5-6 hours later on your show, off your show, going into the middle of the day. We're going to do what it takes to vote. They're just making it harder. It's oppressive at the same time. But the one thing that we know about people who understand oppression, have lived oppression, define the word oppression as Black folks have done, Black and brown people in this country, we know how to get up out of oppression and to survive no matter what. So I think educating our communities, re-educating our communities on how to vote despite the voter suppressive laws is going to be one of the measures on a community level, on a civil rights level, on a grassroots level that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to go back to basics. By the way, we had to do that during the past presidential election because there was still a lot of voter suppression. So we're going to have to do that again and dig deeper because the situation is worse in most of the states that have passed the voter suppressive laws since the presidential election. And by the way, there are going to be more that will be passed now because now the Republicans and conservative forces feel empowered and emboldened. They said, see, it worked. Everybody agrees. The elections are fraudulent. And even the president of the United States is saying that there could be an element of fraud. And that one moment, that one sentence that President Biden said made people reflect and think that he's like Donald Trump. That's why I said he did not appear strong yesterday. He appeared weak. That, in my impression, that was the worst part of the press conference. That was the worst part.
What, the optics?
When he said that. Everything else I thought was pretty okay. Yeah, just the optics of it. The optics of it were not good. To even say, I understood what he meant, but he should have been reflecting on the fact that that is what Donald Trump said, and he should not have taken that time to sound like Donald Trump.
You know what? I am not Miss Cleo. I am so tired of reading folks' minds. Forget what you say. I want to see what you do. I want my voting rights. Boom, mic drop on that. That's what I want. Because Black people are unique in this American experience. Our freedom, our citizenship, and our voting rights are braided together. Period. Everybody has got a line in the sand that they do not cross. With women, it's reproductive rights, and you can keep on going down the line. Now, for me, it's my vote. It's my vote. But when we get our vote, you get yours too. You're not going to be free until I'm free, and you're not going to be a citizen until I am. That's how it works, everybody. It's not just political reality, it's spiritual law. So you don't need to come into my community. Dwight, I don't want to see anyone come into my church. I don't want to see anyone coming to me with tears in their eyes and talking to me about the Republicans. No, I want to know, what did you do? What did you do about my vote?
We keep saying that he is Trump-like. What I'm trying to get us to understand, that he was Trump before Trump. Jan made a message point to me yesterday. The only vote against, only the Supreme Court yesterday that was against legislation in behalf of black people was Clarence Thomas. Well, Clarence Thomas was put there on prerogatives of Joe Biden neutralizing Anita
Hill.
Anita Hill. I was about to say Anita Baker. Anita Hill.
Not this morning.
Getting him on the Supreme Court. That was the same Joe Biden that led that charge. And so, in many ways, he was Donald Trump before Donald Trump.
And went on the floor of the House of of the Senate to push for a pro-police bill the day after we saw the Rodney King tapes. But you know what? All that, I can live with that. I just need you to do what you need to do now. The record is what it is. Hold on. We've got Dr. Max Wolf. I'm so glad you're with us today. We got things. I got around. What did you see yesterday? What did you see yesterday? Because we are talking about these voting rights, because we are wound up about that today, Dr. Wolf. Brilliant economist who's with us every Thursday. And we are hot about it.
So we saw a Supreme Court vote, we saw congressional voting, and then we also saw the press conference. So I want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
No, answer them all. We had a lot yesterday.
Okay. So when the Supreme Court isn't becoming a Trump Fest super spreader event, it's still capable of interpreting the law the way everyone always has, which is good to know, at least some folks on there. I thought that was probably a plus. The voting rights issue was, I think, actually an important moment. I don't think most people thought it would pass, so I don't think the outcome, however distressing, was shocking. I think it was a smart move to make everyone get on the record that they don't believe they can win if people are allowed to vote. Even if it's just for the historical record, as people try to figure out how this democracy died, and I think it is dying, I just think it's important. Hopefully not just for the historians who try to do the post-mortem on American democracy, but even if that's what it's for, then it's important. Right? I think it's important to stand up and say, you know what, I'm pretty sure me and my guys aren't going to win if people are allowed to vote. So yeah, we're against it. Now, I think the job of folks out there is to make sure everyone understands what that vote was. But I think there's some value to having forced people to do it. Of course, probably unsurprisingly, I'm not happy or content or in any way enthusiastic about what it means that the vote was unsuccessful. In terms of the president's press conference, I thought the strength optics on it weren't amazing for a host of reasons. They were probably underwhelming. I would say one thing, though. I don't want to get into the kick circle here, because what I've watched happen is a president who's done about as well as you're going to do in the circumstances he has, mulled along, and then the news media decide the fun story is to talk about how he's not popular because they need a nail-biter of an election for the midterms, and they want a story. And then his guys fell for it, and he came out there and did a little act that made him look as weak as they made up he was to sell newspapers and TV spots and ads. And I think the truth is he doesn't look weak to me. He just doesn't look like a guy who spends all his time pretending he's strong. Right? And what we had last time was a bloviating, sickly, obese moron who spent all of his time telling a disinterested public how strong he was. And that was a fun story. And now we have an older guy trying to do a whole lot of things at the same time without as much energy as he used to have. And so the story is he looks tired or he's not that popular. I mean, I think that's a bizarre story, given that he's replaced by a person who attempted an act of treason and had the lowest overall consistent popularity of any American president. But that wasn't a fun story. The fun story is this guy's not that popular. And I think a lot of that story makes sense, but I think a lot of that story is economic inequality and disease and disappointment and slow programs that don't get to people till way after they needed them are unpopular. And again, don't disagree with that. Not sure it's a news flash. Oh, poverty is unpopular. Oh my God. Oh, sickness and disease, death, unpopular. Huh. Right? A government that can't get anything done, unpopular. Again, like I'm not sure what the breaking news was there. And so while I don't disagree that the optics weren't strong, I think I'm a little bit nervous about becoming another voice kind of falling into line talking about, however reasonable and correct, things about the weakness here because it feels like a manufactured story. Not because it's not somewhat true, but just because why now, why this, right? Because the game of false equivalence is destroying the country. Right? So I don't feel like I want to play that game all the time.
Well, you know what? I think what you hear with this panel, and I've got callers, it's his record. See, he's got a record that's very troubling. And many people who were beginning to come around to Bernie Sanders in 2020 were very disturbed by how the Democratic establishment, and this time in the personages of Black people, came after a progressive candidate. That was a problem. What Black people, our line in the sand is the vote. Every group has got a line in the sand. Women, reproductive rights, you can just keep on going down the line. Everybody's got one. That's ours. And we're the backbone of this party. These folks, the funders might have the money, but we have the votes. We serve over and over again. You know what? He's 80. You know he struggled with his health. My goodness, he is blessed, not lucky, blessed to be alive. He nearly died in the 80s. He's had brain issues. So God bless him. I will never do that. I would never do that. I'm not trying to beat someone down, but I need you to come through. Stay right there, Dr. Wolf, because I want to get a couple of these callers in. I want you to respond. No, I want everybody to respond. Noel in Chicago, what's on your mind, sweetie?
Good morning again.
Good morning.
Yes, yesterday I did call in and I said we are blaming the wrong people. We have over 50 members of the Congressional Black Caucus that needs to unite and attach voting rights to the next.
Noel, I need you to speak up because we can barely hear you.
Yes. What I'm saying, so we have over 50 members of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Mm-hmm.
They need to unite and then attach the voting rights bill to the next debt ceiling debate, because that's what the other side cares about the most. What is it that the Congressional Black Caucus care about? Stand for that. If you don't vote for this, we are not voting to raise the debt ceiling. It's that simple. It's not complicated. You have to give and take. That's how Congress works. You can't just give the other side, give the other side, give the other side. You have to attach it to something the other side cares about. Here's the voting rights bill. Here's the debt ceiling debate. If you don't vote for this, we're not voting for this. It's that simple. Hold our Congressional Black Caucus responsible for the voting rights bill. Not Joe Biden, not Sinema, not the senator from West Virginia. Congressional Black Caucus.
So, I mean, well, what is your response to that, Max? And I'm going to open, after I hear from you, we're going to open it to the rest of the panel.
I think the idea of tying things is interesting. And not to go down the wrong hallway here, but just being sort of more expert in the debt ceiling issues. Mm-hmm. Neither side cares about the debt ceiling or the debt. That's how you end up $23 trillion in debt, because you don't care. They just like to bludgeon other people and have a photo op, which I think might be the bigger issue here. The public doesn't pay attention, and then they trust people who they say they don't trust to tell them what's going on. Right? Mm-hmm. And so each side gets to stand up there and say, I really care about deficits, and this guy doesn't. And that's really all they care about, right? And then they always raise the debt ceiling because their job is to get the government, which is the biggest, most important single cog in the economy, to throw money at the people who threw money at them. So it's a sort of mediocre theater, right? It's lacks some of the flair and depth of professional wrestling, but it's of a similar cut.
Dwight?
If they don't raise the debt ceiling, no max, then all the people who they're borrowing money to finance go broke, and they have to raise money to pay for the army and for all of the services the government provide. And so I think it's a tremendous strategy. I've been saying this all the time, that we have to tie. The reason they were willing to put the filibuster on hold to pass the debt ceiling is because it brought liability to the country. And I've been saying all the time that unless we have democratized pain, unless everybody's at risk, then they always have the option to sacrifice us, to put us on the altar and say, well, we'll get to you all later on. This is important. This is crucial. It's crucial that all of us get paid. But we'll take you all's rights and put that on hold and get back around to it. At some point, Dr. King talked about the urgency of now, and we got to put everything on the line now to make sure we don't keep pushing. We've been pushed back for the last 150 years, and at some point we have to say enough is enough.
Well, you know what, Max, I'm going to give you the final minute.
I get it, but you've already been positioned in the first 5 lines of assault if they do have a selective default. Because if you do have a selective default, you'll have a really bad recession, and then the years of the economy will work to force the pain down, which they're really good at. And my evidence I'd suggest to you is 2000, 2001, 2008, 2009, 2021, 2022. We have a way of responding to recessions that forces the full weight of the downturn down to lower income communities. And so if you trigger a really bad recession, which might be worth it to draw attention to things, I understand the frustration, you are also likely to be the people absorbing the shockwaves first, foremost, and frontal.
We're already in recession. We're already in depression. We never left depression. That's the point. It's just we're in depression mostly by ourselves. We have to put more people in depression so they understand what the pain feels like. So they will have to make.
I understand.
Right now, we don't want to make it yet.
Yeah, so I grew up in a family that had a fun expression, might give you a sense it's a happy family there, which was just because it's bad does not mean it cannot get a lot worse. And that's my caution, right?
Yes.
So you want to be a little careful about being very righteously, very reasonably so angry at the terrible movie you just paid $25 to watch that you slash the seats, because the world is set up so that seats, it's a drive-in. It's a drive-in movie. So you've got to be careful. I'm not disagreeing with the anger or the intention, and it is true that the sort of mellow, acceptable path of grievance has basically left people comfortable with you being aggrieved. And if you don't want to be aggrieved anymore, then you probably don't need them to be comfortable anymore. I get that.
Well, I guess we're leaning on the good book. Jesus came to disturb the comfortable and to comfort the disturbed. When you're dealing with the least of these in America, who are increasingly white and brown, have always been black.
And numerous.
And the numbers are increasing. People are in pain. And you know what? None of us are free until every single one of us is free. And black people feel this pain in a particular way because in order to come out of slavery, in order to be free, the Constitution had to be amended. In order for us to become citizens, the Constitution had to become amended. In order for us to get the vote, it had to be amended. And it took them 95 years to enact it. Something's got to change, including our minds. You got to have an insult level. And these executive actions need to be signed by the president, and they need to be signed by the president now. He doesn't just need to visit South Carolina. He needs to come there with some executive orders in hand so that when they come around for our votes come fall, we'll be able to vote. If they do not overturn these laws that are being enacted by Republicans throughout all the 50 states, we're not going to be able to vote. But maybe that's the corporate agenda. I don't know. But I tell you what, no matter who else has an agenda, you need to have one. And not just one for surviving, but you need to have one for thriving. This land was made for you and me and you and you and you and you and everybody. It works when you work it. Make it work for you. Make it work for you. Make America what America is supposed to be for everybody. Make it work, everybody. I can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Stay with me on the Santita Jackson Show. Gotta get some closing thoughts from this magnificent panel. Closing thoughts. You know you want to hear what they got to say. I love you, everybody. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow. Thank you, Matt, for a great show. God bless. Whew. Well, you know, Max and CK, are you still there?
I'm here, yes.
Okay. You want to respond to anything? Because I mean, you know, Max, I'm so sorry I was late calling you today. When I sent you a text yesterday, I didn't hear, and I said, oh well, he's got something else to do. But he's gonna leave me on my shoulder all by myself. But CK, why don't you respond to what you heard?
Well, I have to tell you, I don't have much to add other than this. You know, sometimes we just need a wake-up call. And yesterday was a wake-up call. While we may have predicted what could happen, I think it was a wake-up call. But the silver lining was the U.S. Supreme Court, decision. I mean, so there's always a silver lining in every cloud. How about that? I think, but I do think it's a wake-up call because sometimes, people, we might feel like we can rest on some laurels, although I don't know if anyone really felt there were any laurels to rest on. But people can become complacent. And yesterday was a reminder that we have to galvanize our energy and continue to fight on the state level, on the grassroots level, and educating voters. That's as it relates to voting rights. But we don't need to let the president off the hook. We have to continue to apply pressure for him to continue to make good on his promise. And he can do a lot with executive orders. There's a lot that the president can do. There's a lot that, no one, ironically, is even talking about Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. I know that she's having a community meeting today to talk about next steps, ironically. So, but no one is even focused on Kamala. But I think that going out into the community.
Wait a minute. Well, do you think that they should be? Should be? I mean, because he put this in her lap.
I think that that Kamala should be more visible on this issue. Mm. He did put it in her lap, but he is the president of the United States. So now, and I think she is going out. Again, she's having a meeting today. She's going out into the community with the stakeholders, the organization stakeholders, and getting input, hearing what they want to have. But I do think, Gerald Griggs raised this issue, and maybe I'm sensitive to it because I am a lawyer and I am in the court. There needs to be more litigation. Mm-hmm. We do have the ability to also bring about change through litigation. And right now, all hands have to be on deck, and I think there needs to be a fight on all levels.
Mm. Well, anyone want to jump in? Dwight?
Well, the only problem with litigation is that Trump has put most of the judges. Part of their strategy was to stack the courts. And so even at the level of litigation, they got the advantage. That's why I said it was more of a street struggle and more of a street struggle, where we have to use our congressional power. I totally agree with that. We got 50 members of the caucus who always vote with the Democrats, but the Democrats never vote with them. And you got to be able to fight that fight at that level. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, I go back to the Philip Randolph, who when they went in, he said, "We got to fight, y'all. We really can stay at home and let y'all fight these international battles for yourselves." And at that point is when the president said, "Oh, okay, maybe we need to reconsider that we pay all of the soldiers at the same rate. Maybe we should reconsider that we need to integrate the army." But you can't have it both ways. You can't have us dying for democracy and not have it ourselves. We need to take the fight to that level. Because, again, I'm convinced that Biden is as much on their side as he is on our side. And he's hiding behind Mantra and these guys because he, too, is if you look at his politics and his history, he, too, is a white supremacist. And these guys want to hold on to that power by any means necessary. At our expense, by the way.
Max,
can I just say one thing about the courts? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
To Dwight's comment about the courts, you know, the fight in the courts is critical. I just disagree. It is critical for us to fight in the courts, to fight the law, even if it's a slow process. Protective orders. There's so many things that can happen in expedited litigation. In fact, it goes hand in hand with the grassroots effort. The grassroots organizations oftentimes are bringing the litigation. So I think it's important for us to still fight on all levels because you never know. Occasionally, even this very conservative, one-sided Supreme Court will do the right thing. And even though Donald Trump has stacked the courts, there's still a lot of good judges. I appear before them. And there's some judges, believe it or not, that he appointed that are not as bad as we thought they were going to be. They ain't the best, but they're not as bad as we thought they were going to be. So I think we don't want to give up on that because that's a fundamental tool and a weapon that we have. In addition to, of course, the congressional action, having a different approach, a different strategy. I think we need to go for broke. And going for broke means using all the tools in our box.
I agree with that. I didn't disagree with that. I'm simply saying, knowing that when we fight that fight, that also is a stacked deck. At least you know that the hand is stacked when you fight your fight. And so I totally agree we need to fight on all fronts, but we have to be realistic and honest with ourselves about what we're fighting against.
Max, what are your thoughts about what you're hearing?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that actually there might be more fruit than maybe some people do in making this the big story because it ties a lot of things together, right? So to me, the story isn't just voting rights. That's obviously a story. It's a big one. But the story is this a democracy anymore? You have to make someone own this, right? So in other words, if your strategy to get reelected is to be the party that gets fewer votes nationally, fewer votes for Congress, fewer votes for Senate, fewer votes for governor, and still runs the country, then you are at war with democracy. Front and center in that war is their strategic or tactical decision to systematically disenfranchise people of color, right? But that is a tactic in the war. Talking about the war as well as the tactic broadens the circle, right? Because the bottom line is the Republican Party, mostly white and suburban and rural, is outraged that having gotten 7 million less votes, they're not in the White House. That is the most anti-democratic thing out there.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, yes, the systematic and historic disenfranchisement of people of color, particularly African Americans, is the sort of crown jewel in that. Right? That gem set there. But it's a crown jewel in a crown. Let's talk the whole crown. Because this crown gets worn by the people who are best now at keeping young people from voting, keeping people overworked and hours such that it's hard to vote, making sure you don't have child care or that the post office doesn't work so you can't mail your ballot, and now no one's post office works, which is actually a really important public service that a lot of people rely on for one reason or another, but for many to get a check that sustains their livelihood or their life, ability to buy things, right? It's not so minor, and it touches everyone's life, right? It's very universal. So the point is, for people who care more about other things or people who don't care or people who don't know, this is not a democracy. That's the story. To me, that's the bigger story, right? Mm-hmm. It can't be a democracy until it fully embraces all of its citizens, particularly those with whom it has its worst track record, right? Whether that's Native American or African American or some combination thereof, right? But this is about, is this a democracy? Full stop. Right?
It always has been,
Full
and
stop.
and the answer has always been no, and just trying to make it a republic.
But be careful. The reality has often been no. The self-conception that millions of well-meaning people of every race, creed, and color have been willing to fight and die for is that the answer is yes.
Yeah, but what they don't
Right?
understand, but they don't understand governmental systems, because when you really understand what a democracy is, you would know that even with a constitutional monarchy, the British are more democratic than we. That is the fact. Is we have a the fact that we are not a constitutional monarchy and we're a constitutional republic, that needs to be explained to people. Who we are and what we were structured to be and what we come out of, our origins have not been explained to people adequately. Max, we don't know. I mean, we have Americans who go get knighted by the Queen of England. Number one, that's illegal. Our Constitution
the jails are full of people who got knighted.
Yeah, but as American citizens, not subjects, that's not what you're supposed to do. You know, there's just so much. There are so many details that we do not understand.
I mean, Alan Greenspan got knighted.
You know what, Kennedy, and it was not right. You're a citizen of a. It's in the. I'm not arguing with the Constitution on that. That's what it says. You're not supposed to.
No, I think my point is that there's got to be a bigger social debate, because I think
to me that is part of the bigger social debate. That is.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You know,
that's what I mean. I don't think it's just voting rights. Not that voting rights aren't enough. Not that that isn't big. Not that that isn't worth fighting for. Not that isn't worth dying for. Not that many people haven't fought and died for it. All true. Okay. My point is, we're at a moment on a lot of fronts, including this one, prominently including this one, where we're trying to figure out whether it's more important for us to auction off presidencies and senatorships and governorships to whoever tickles the fancy of a bored billionaire best, or we're going to have some semblance of a democracy, right? Now, whatever democracy we try to have, we'll have to build on our past successes and failures, which you're bringing up. But I don't know that we're in a situation where we have a decision about whether or not we're going to be a democracy. We have a two-party system, and one of these parties has its official televised strategy to stop a whole lot of folks from voting so that it can still win, right? And that is pretty crazy, right? Or we have a party that isn't comfortable condemning people who murdered police officers when they violently rioted and assaulted the nation's capital. What? Even 10, 15 years ago, I think a lot of people would have thought you were high if you suggested this was a looming threat. Those same people who would have looked at you as high 10 years ago will now think what we're saying is crazy. But people know something's up. Right?
But you know what the problem with that, Max, is? That happens to black people every day, and it's been happening to us since before the Republic was founded. See, we were not shocked by January 6th, okay? We're not shocked by anything that happens here, because the most horrifying things that could happen to a human being any place happen to us here.
Sure.
I mean, so we know we're the ones. Black people are the ones who expose the cracks. Who expose all the lies. That is what we do. That's perhaps one of our great gifts. That's one of our great gifts here. We expose. No, y'all ain't a democracy yet. No, you don't believe in freedom yet. No. We tell you who you really are. We're known as the truth tellers. That is what we do. That's what we do. I mean, folks are America. I can't believe January 6th happened. I can't believe it. What? I can't. No. We were devastated by Kennedy's assassination, but we'd seen you assassinate leaders before. We'd seen our own people lynched and hung on the front porch. And they We've seen it all, Max.
Max, Max, hello.
Max is still here. And wait a minute, just so that you know, Max is accustomed to me going off, and we've been close for 20 years, and he just tolerates me, and I love him for it.
No, I learned from Max after toleration. Hello, Max. I predicted January 6th, 6 months before it happened. I said that they were going to go to the White House and storm the Capitol.
You did say that.
And try to reverse the vote. It was not surprising to me. I said they need to start meeting with the generals then.
You said that.
Because that was going to happen. So the issue is not, for us in this, we understand that democracy to white America is a means to an end. It's not an end unto itself. It only works for them if they're the majority. If they're not the majority, democracy does not work for them. The issue is power. This is a power dynamic, and they're going to be in charge, whether the means is democracy or fascism or totalitarianism, whatever they need to do to maintain control, they will do. Democracy will be suspended when it's necessary to suspend. At our expense, we understand that much better than you all do, because America is designed to work for white people and work against everybody else. And so we understand the goal for them, for most of them, is not democracy. The goal is control. And if we're confused about that, we're just swept up in the hype, and we will never get free, because we, as we do now, go around the world fighting for the democracy for white people and come back here and still cannot vote and still don't have the rights that the people we fight for have the rights to do. Santita's daddy tell a story, Reverend Jackson tell a story about his daddy went to war and came back, fought to free, liberate Germany, came back and had to ride on the train behind the Germans.
When they got to Washington. Wait. I just want to insert this here. When they got to the nation's capital, because they flew into New York, when they got into the nation's capital, they had to go to the colored train while they put the Nazi POWs and the people who they had, and the Nazis who were coming here to work in science and in other areas, they put them on the front of the train. That was the last conversation, Max, that I had with my granddaddy in person before he died. He had never, in all my 15 years, he had never mentioned, he mentioned that he was in the war effort, that he was a soldier, but he didn't talk about it. But that last time I saw him, Max, and Dwight, and Dwight knew my grandfather, it's like he poured this stuff out. And, and I don't know, then I just kind of clocked it. Because I said, wow. He said, we went to Buchenwald and we went to Auschwitz because we had to free the prisoners who were left, the Jewish people who were left behind. He said, but they sent black soldiers in there, because there were landmines everywhere. So many of us got killed. He said, but they also sent us in there because when the Jewish survivors of the Holocaust saw us, they would know that we were not Nazis because we were black people. You see, so, these are the things that we see. And when I think of my grandfather, I was standing out at the foot of his and my grandmother's bed. I was just standing there. And my father was trying to get to the airport with my Uncle Saint. And my father missed the plane, listening to my grandfather tell his stories and how it was like first of all, he got sent to the war because he had several jobs. And he took my father on one of his jobs to work, because my father's been working since he was about 5 or 6. And they were doing some yard work. And the white man who owned the house, decided he was going to get smart with my grandfather and call him boy. And my grandfather confronted him and said, do not do that. He was not going to diminish him in front of his son. He wasn't going to let that happen. That white man walked down to the courthouse and got my grandfather drafted immediately and got him sent off to war, hoping he'd be killed. These are our experiences. So when I look at President Biden, and to fully disclose, he's someone who I've met down through the years. He's always been lovely. But that has nothing to do with my politics. Black people have experienced every horror that can be served up to anybody on any soil right here. Any other atrocity, because everything that you could do to a human being to diminish them and to destroy them happened to us right here. I want my vote. Because in order for me to get out of freedom, they had to amend the Constitution. In order for me to become a citizen, the Constitution had to be amended. In order for me to get a vote, the Constitution had to be amended. Those three things braided together for me. So I don't have excuses. Everybody's got one. Every self-respecting people has a line in the sand, and that is mine. It's mine, and I'm not moving. You're going to give me my vote. Dr. King said in 1957, give me the ballot, give it to me. Rosa Parks was trying to get registered to vote in the 40s. Give me my vote. It's mine. I want it. And if you're not going to fight for me, I'm going to get you out the way and get someone who will make this happen for me. You don't have the right to ask me for my vote unless you deliver for me. You don't have that right. Not have it. You ought to be disgusted by people who don't deliver for you. Don't let them come back to you and say, oh my goodness, this happened. I don't care. You're not going to any other people with their issues through. I'm done. Hello?
I think the two little quick things I wanted to say was I wasn't so much surprised by January 6th, although there were some things about it that were surprising, as the fact that we've gotten to the point in less than a year where we decided to pretend it didn't happen. Right? I thought that was a little bit more a sign that maybe the conversation and accountability could be honed a touch. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's an interesting question to say a media that says, hey, Biden's not that popular, looks like he's struggling. Democracy's not that popular, it looks like it's struggling too.
You're absolutely right.
I feel like democracy is going to be around after Joe, right? So my point isn't Joe good, Joe bad. My point is don't care that much about Joe. Look at the engine, not the hood ornament. The president, no offense to any particular president, is kind of a hood ornament. Right?
You're right.
And hood ornaments are interesting, right? But and no offense, right? It's a hard job, and I'm sure I couldn't get it if I wanted it. So not insulting anyone, it's hard to get there. And I couldn't, so it's no problem. Lots of respect. But engine, then hood ornament, okay? 1. 2, white people aren't unified, and the white people who run this country also don't care about white people. So the other thing I think is important is not to think of whites as a hegemonic group.
Oh,
really
we don't.
Care of each other well.
Oh, no, we don't.
No, but I think a lot of white people do.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't, because, white folks were denied the right to vote, too. Please, they shouldn't.
It's much easier to trick them into assaulting the Capitol while you watch how badly they do it on TV and figure out how best to try it with their kids.
But you know what? That was the argument that Reverend Jackson tried to make in 1984 and 1988. That was the argument that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King has tried to make. We have been trying to reason with white people to let them know how they have been gamed. Now, they have chosen not to listen. That is not my fault.
Yeah, that's not your job. It's not your job either. So my point isn't to say it's your job. My point is it's important when you have a series of folks arrayed against you to try to figure out every fissure, crack, grievance, and divide in those folks. Because those are the cracks in the facade that allow you to climb the wall. That's all.
Look, I hear you. Dwight? Because we're going to have to go in a minute.
Oh, no. No, I'm listening to Max, and I think he makes some good points. Is that we're dealing with the whole, and that unless and it was white people that were the abolitionists and who we fought with free us. So we have no illusions that there are not great white people out there. But I'm not so sure. That wasn't my point. There had to be
I think that point needs to be made. When you think of John Brown and people like him, there are some white people who saw through the artifice. You know what? I'm not truly free unless everybody else is free. We've had some white allies and we've had some black enemies. We're clear on that.
It's complicated, right? Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dwayne.
But for this to become a non-democratic republic, non-democratic dictatorship, a substantial amount of white people have to buy the okie doke. And right now, when you look at Trump, he got more white votes than I think 70, 80 million of those people. And what has been holding whatever the remnants of democracy together that we seem to have has been the fact that we've been voting Democratic and dealing with the virtues of democracy, trying to hold democracy together. And so what I'm saying is that there is a substantial number of white people in this country who is infatuated with what they perceive to be their power dynamic with white privilege. And they want to hold on to that by any means necessary. And it's enough of them to succeed in holding us down if we are not willing to put as much on the line as they have put on the line. So for sure, true. The last three guys that got killed by in the marches in Kenosha, they were white guys. And God bless them. And we see them as martyrs. And they're elevated in our spirit. But the guy that shot all three of them and got away and went home to a steak dinner and TV shows was another little white guy who has the right to shoot at will and he was protected by a white judge who didn't see anything wrong with his attempt because he saw that it's this young boy at 17's right to maintain the social order. And so that's what we're trying to battle against.
Max?
Yeah, no, I see it. I don't disagree. I think part of what's happening, just my opinion, it doesn't mean it's true, part of what's happening is a large number of formerly middle and or lower middle class white Americans have figured out that there is no place for them and their kids worth having 10, 20, 30 years out. And I think that might be something they haven't grappled with or their families haven't much grappled with for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. So I think there's a lot of shock and a lot of anger. And to me, what's most distressing about that is the angry voices that are willing to speak truthfully about how difficult the situation are for that community, that white community, especially for younger white males, right, skew very far to the right. And I think getting a little bit more diversity of opinion, as well as every other type, into that narrative is important. And I also think one of the ironies of every republic is that people the republic reviles, marginalizes, mistreats, and takes advantage of are the people who safeguard the republic. So if you look at who votes for relative progress in the United States and for democracy in the United States, it's unmarried women who are kind of secret heroes of the Democratic Party too, right? People of color and overly educated, moderately high earning over urbans, right? It's everyone that the heartland story of America says is shifty, untrustworthy, broken, defective, or second rate. That's who makes the country first rate. That and immigrants. And the dirty little secret of immigrants is they do a ton of the business ownership and innovation and contribution to American science as well, right? So that which we hold as second has held us up to be first.
While we're trying to keep them out of here.
And I think, yeah, absolutely, right? So thanks a lot. How about a dog bite and a water cannon? Yeah, obviously, maybe the appreciation package could be buffed up a little bit. I'm not arguing that it's A-okay, right? That the hospitality package, the American hospitality package for the people doing the most to build the republic has historically been not great, for sure. But there is a story there that could be told, that could be interesting, right? And there is a story which I think is more interesting, which is the people who are pulling the strings are trying to throw away whatever historical prosperity and sense of an entitlement these people have. And they're really angry. And they're angry at the same people who you're angry at. Right? So there is a historical oddity, the fact that these two groups are always pitted against each other. Right? And that's the story of the Tidewater Whites, and it's the story of Bacon's Rebellion. It's a story older than this being an independent country. And perhaps I'm foolish for reading too many books. I think almost anyone who knows me would tell you I'm foolish. I don't know if they would all agree on the reason.
I do not say that.
Yeah, but it would be nice to think that we could get some progress in at least our analytic or ability to work together on common problems over 300 years. And maybe I'm a university professor at heart, but I feel like if you got a 300-year extension, you should write a hell of a paper.
I think, we have to work for it.
And I apologize, folks. I have a 9:30, so
of course.
I'll be expecting someone else with my mediocre ideas. But I have enjoyed sharing my intellectual blather with you.
No, you know what?
The mediocre path of mere scholasticism. It's a good line. High theory, European social criticism.
No, and I just want to thank you for being my friend. See, these are some of the conversations Max and I have, and he just listens. I said, boy.
I learned a lot. It's selfish. I'm listening to learn. I know more than I did before this call.
Well, I mean,
I appreciate everyone's patience with me. And look, if you can't tell me what you really think, I can't learn what you really think. So, yeah.
Well, I will say this. You have always been very open and honest with me and earnest. And I love my Max. I do.
I don't have a good enough memory to be much of a liar, but I'm working on it. Thanks, all. Take care.
Thank you. Dwight McKee, you want to close us out? You are not. Well, and Arlene said she appreciates Max's opinions because they are informed. And that's why we are here, because we like to share, Dwight, this diversity of thought. A lot of people come at this from all different directions, and everyone is welcome here. And I'm seeing a chat on my I'm seeing on the chat line, Osa, I appreciate your being here and everybody, but kind of bring it down a little bit. Let's calm down. And let's talk with each other, not at each other. And you know what, Mehdi, you have noticed something. The thing is, African Americans in the diaspora, black people from the who were born in the United States and whose families have been here through slavery. There is another kind of view. There's another kind of view. It doesn't make it a superior view. It just makes it a different kind of view than blacks who might have immigrated from Africa, and who had their own colonial struggles. And then blacks in the Caribbean who had their own colonial struggles. It's different. It's different. And I think that is, we're all just really beginning to get to know each other. But one of the things that's happened is that black people who've immigrated to the United States have been used by the white power structure to really bludgeon Black Americans who are descendants of slaves, and that should not happen. I think that what needs to happen is that when you come here, you need to ask us what our experience has been, so that you can understand what the struggle is. You need to understand that, because that struggle has opened the door for you to get here. If Black people had not struggled, had not fought, struggled, and won, you wouldn't get here. You would have been in chains just like us. And that's real talk. Dwight McKee, your closing thoughts?
Well, I just want Max to really know what he's looking at. And when I talk about this anti-democratic strain, this fascist strain, when these white supremacists talk about other, they're not just talking about Black people. They're talking about Jewish people. They're talking about natives. They're talking about anybody who don't look like them.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is as much hostility to come, and especially if you look at the numbers on the Jewish community, as there is on the Black community. And as these people become more powerful and more locked into the system, you will see the same kind of backlash upon our Jewish brothers and sisters as the Nazis did in Germany.
We've already seen it.
It's the same mentality.
You remember Hank Schwab? Do you remember Mr. Schwab? He was a Holocaust survivor, and he was, up until his death, he was at Push every Saturday. He occupied the seat on the front row, and Push is in a converted synagogue. You remember Mr. Schwab, right?
Yeah, I remember Hank.
And you know what was so wonderful about him? He and Jonathan was like another son to him. He was just wonderful, and he used to give me all of these CDs because he wanted me to come over and sing like Marian Anderson for him. He was just a jewel. And Jonathan asked him, "Why are you?" Because he went everywhere with us. He would be on the marches, and he was he was very much an elder, very, very, very much an elder. And in his 70s and 80s and 90s, Jonathan said, "Why are you out here marching with us? Why are you at Push every Saturday?" Because Jonathan used to go pick him up, and he wanted to be there at 9:00 because he didn't want to miss anything. And he said, "Because when I came to the United States and I saw what Black people were going through," he said, "Oh my God, this is what we were enduring in Germany. I have to be a part of this struggle." And Max comes out of that tradition. I mean, I think his grandfather was the first white professor, I think, at Fisk University. And his grandfather also founded the SEIU. He comes from his father is Dr. Richard Wolff, the world-renowned academic and economist. And he comes from a real history of struggle and clarity. He's an absolute jewel. Absolute jewel. Absolute jewel. Been so blessed to have him. But Dwight, your closing thoughts. We've covered a whole lot of ground today.
Well, I was simply saying is I really want him to know what he's looking at. That this man is, when I talk about racist, I'm not talking about just white people or Black people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about an theology of racial superiority that is very, very fascist and Aryan in its orientation. Those demonstrations down in Carolina, when they were saying that we want our country back and they won't take this from us, they were talking about Jewish people. They weren't talking about Black people. It is, and so I don't want him to misunderstand what democracy means in America. That democracy is a great idea
mm-hmm.
in America. But everybody, when they talk about democracy, don't have the same thing in mind. And we're all not talking about the same thing. When we talk about democracy, we talk about an inclusive democracy that everybody participates in based on the right of citizenship and birthright and all humanity being equal. But if your premise is not all men are created equal, if your premise is that we are, so other people are 3/5 of a man, if your premise is that this country was made for you, then when you talk about democracy, you're talking about the rightful white men with property to vote. And that's how they wrote the Constitution. When they talked about democracy, that's what they had in mind. And so we spent the last 200-300 years trying to get drafted into that. That's why when Dr. King marched in Memphis, the signs that the men held was, "I am a man." Because the premise of a democratic republic starts with that you have to first be convinced that I'm a man. Because all men have the right to vote. All men have the right to be free. But if the question is you're not quite a man, then you don't fit the profile. And so democracy don't even involve you because democracy is only for men.
White property men.
white property men. And if they don't see us or Jews or people who are not like them that way, then they don't even think that, they think that they're doing democracy a favor because we're in position on democracy, because we don't fit the bill. And that's the only point that I'm making. And that's why I said that Dr. King talked about the urgency of now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to really understand what we're looking at.
You know, that's absolutely true. We need to understand what we're looking at. We really, really do. And part of the challenge that we've had is that many of us have not. We have not understood it. You know, we have not understood what we were looking at. You know, because people want to be special, but we haven't understood. But I'm glad we can have these forthright conversations here, so that we can begin to understand. You know, that is that's a wonderful thing. And I want to thank you for lending your brilliance and in your insights and so much of the history. Um, and I want to thank you for that. Also, I'd love for you to call in one day. I really, really, really would. D-Ray, resend that now. I just went over there. I didn't see it, and my spam folder is empty. So if you would resend that, that would be great. Okay. But let me see. You said, what is it? He's always talking about white supremacists, like all are. Yes, there are. And when you start a statement like that, it is the white supremacists in Biden that is doing whatever he is wrong. Many whites in the Senate voted for this bill yesterday, and Senator Scott, who was black, voted against it. And yet he is here saying Biden white supremacist when the bill did not pass. I think you don't really understand. Why don't you respond to him, Dwight, when you're talking about white supremacists, and then we're going to get out. Also, I wish you'd call in tomorrow, you know, and we should talk. We should talk, because I think there's a lot about our history in the United States, I think, that you might not really understand. I mean, I'm saying that, but when I listen to what you're saying, there's a lot that you don't get. And no harm, no foul. Because there's a back and forth, and we're going to have that conversation one day. I believe Osa is from Nigeria, and there's a back and forth about, between black people who descended of slavery in the United States and, I guess, immigrant blacks who he would represent. And that's a little too complex for us to get into right now, but we should definitely have that conversation. Dwight, your closing thoughts?
Yeah, white supremacy is it's not a complexion; it's a mentality. It's a mindset. It's a culture that presupposes there's something about Western civilization that is superior to all of other civilizations, and therefore it gives these Westerners the right to dominate the world. Which is why when you go to any country that they've been in, that they colonize the country and they become the masters. It's a master-servant mentality that grows out of a philosophy that somehow God made their culture, which is part of their ethnicity, superior to everybody else. You cannot enslave a people unless you believe they are inferior to them. You cannot colonize a people unless you feel that they're superior to them. You cannot become the masses of a people unless you believe that there is a deficit in their character that you have a responsibility to correct. Kipling used to call it the white man's burden. That is, their burden is because they're the superior people to run the world. Evolutionists call it the right of superior people to run the world. It's a favorite species. That's what Darwin called it. He called it the right of favorite species. And it was a justification for evolution. for colonization is that they were an evolved people who had by nature said survived everything that's been thrown at them. They were the survival of the fittest, and because they were the fittest, they had the right to run the world. It's a mentality. The same mentality that we're looking at the world now and say, oh, okay, we need to pick and choose who the leaders are. If they agree with us, we put them in charge. Otherwise, those people don't have the right to choose their own leadership because they're not capable of making those kind of decisions for themselves. That's what I mean by white supremacy.
Mm. And I would love for Osa to call in one day. And I thank you, Nina, for your contribution. She said disagreements regarding them back and forth. And she was speaking to Osa and Robert. Unless you know one another and ask and listen to another's lived experiences and struggles, making assumptions is hurtful. Absolutely. So, let's be respectful. Let's be respectful. And, maybe Robert and Osa should call in one day. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. That should happen. You all can continue to have this discussion on the Santita Jackson and Friends page or on YouTube on the Santita Jackson Show. But also, I think there's a lot that we can share with you about our experience in the United States. I think that's something that that you should hear about. Because I have a lot of friends from who are in who from the diaspora, and like they don't understand, they don't know Emmett Till. They don't know that story. And they don't know what we went through on these plantations, why now there's so many different iterations of Black people. My mother would say, she had 5 of us, she said she didn't know what was going to come out because there's so much that Black people have absorbed in terms of abusive relationships, rape, and all of that. There's a real story that Black people in America have here. And you need to know it. And Robert, we need to know Osa's colonial experience and the experience that he did not have, having a white slaver in the United States. And Black people had to fight the biggest, fiercest empire on earth for our freedom. Black people in America. Nothing was given to us. We had to fight for every single thing, everything. And we're still fighting. And everybody is here because we've been winning. But you need to be very clear on who's been doing the fighting and what kind of fight it's been. So I love you, everybody. Dwight, love you. Thank you so much for everything. Matt, thank you for a great show. And God bless you, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless. Boy, we've been